You're listening to the Never Submit Podcast with your host, Matthew Chickella. Join Matthew and his friends as they discuss everything from movies and TV shows to professional wrestling and the UFC. It's the Never Submit Podcast, and it's happening starting right now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Never Submit Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Chickella, once again joined by Mike and Shawn. Guys, welcome back to the show. We are a week and a day away from Wrestlemania. Mike, you excited for Wrestlemania?
I'm excited for the podcast.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm more excited about talking about the podcast than anything.
It's kind of sad that we're a week and a day from WrestleMania. None of us are excited. I can remember being a kid and WrestleMania week. I mean, it was a whole week-long event that I was super excited, and now it's kind of like, I'm sure I'll probably be excited on the day of the show just because it has that nostalgia feeling to it. But the build for this year's show has definitely done nothing to get me excited anything on the card.
Yeah, like I said, if you want to...
Go ahead, Shawn.
I was just saying, like I said, if we want to take an early pool, if WrestleMania was not on the network, how many people would actually pay to watch it on pay-per-view this year? Yeah, I mean, I think they would do some just because of the name WrestleMania, but, that's about it.
Yeah.
I think if this was not on the network, this would be the first year in history that I wouldn't order the show. I don't know if I would order this year. I mean, maybe I'd have that last. Yeah, I would say maybe I'd have that last minute kind of like, fuck, I need to see Triple H versus Sting. I gotta. Mm-hmm. But because the price now is, what is it, $60 or something like that if you don't have it on the network, I want to see Triple H versus Sting. I don't know if I want to pay $60 for it. I mean, I can see that shit on YouTube or some other way, after WrestleMania is over with. So I don't know if I'd order it. I'm glad it's on the network because then, by all means, it's worth every penny. Because $10.
Well, remember, Matt, you got to start insulting the fans. What would you rather do? Pay $60 or pay $9.99 for the network? You got to start insulting your viewers.
I think that's horrible when they do that too, because not everybody is technologically, savvy. Like there are some people that maybe to them, because for like me personally, if I didn't have a Roku box, I would not be watching the networks. I'm not going to sit at a laptop or an iPad or a computer screen, and watch hours of wrestling at my computer. I'm not going to do it.
Right, yeah, I got a PS4, and if it wasn't for the PS4, I wouldn't have it.
And there's probably a lot of people out there that, like say, people in their 40s or 50s maybe, that obviously probably don't play video games, we're assuming, and they probably, if they're older, they don't know exactly what the hell a Roku or Apple TV or whatever is, so they're thinking, well, the network, I got to get on, the computer and watch the network. Like, I'm not doing that. And that's probably people, because really, the WWE has not done a good job to explain all the different ways to really get the network.
Well, not only that, what about people that legitimately can't afford internet or can't afford certain, like a tablet or the computer or anything like that for them to, to view it. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the world we live in, too, is there's, unfortunately, people out there that just cannot afford it.
That's true. That's very true.
It's ridiculous. I mean, honestly, there's two matches I'm looking forward to on this card. Sting and Triple H and the ladder match. Because I have a feeling it's going to almost like, and that almost made my top 10, but it didn't, the Money in the Bank ladder match. Personally, I think that should have just stayed as an event at WrestleMania rather than its own pay-per-view, which
I agree.
My opinion.
I agree. It was a good opener for WrestleMania, and then you had to use it by the next year's WrestleMania. It was just a good timeline for that gimmick. I don't think it needed to be its own, special pay-per-view.
And speaking of that, Shelton Benjamin, whether it was spot machine or not, I think he was probably one of the most athletically gifted and talented guys that never quite made it. We were talking about
I agree.
Last podcast. Shelton Benjamin was he was a specimen.
You think that Shelton Benjamin was a spot machine?
No, he had a lot of spots in that, but see, that's why I like. Like, he could spot, but he could wrestle too.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I didn't ever thought Shelton as a spot machine.
Well, it's like once he did that run up the ladder thing, they made that his spot.
I love that. Yeah,
they take away from moves like that when they make that the person's. Like almost like I hated when Shawn Michaels started stomping on the mat.
Oh,
before. Yeah. It's just like, no, don't. That just gives it away. Like, what? I mean, what? My daughter, if she knew what Shawn Michaels did, if she heard and felt the mat being stomped on, who the hell would it roll out of the ring?
Right, exactly. Well, and how many times did that actually work? He would either miss it or, they kick out or whatever when he came back.
I mean, at least with The Rock, he's like setting up. He's not stomping, but like that, and like Orton when he's beating on the mat for the RKO. It's just like, oh my god.
Well, that's
the beauty of the RKO was like the same beauty with the diamond cutter, like boom. And I hate the
out of nowhere. Yeah.
Well, I hate that out of nowhere, but that was the beauty of it. Same with the stunner, boom, right there. Super kick, boom. Right there. Now you're just, let me stop. I mean, it's nice here and there. Like maybe on a big moment, like every now and then, if it was just like a big moment, it's just like Shawn was just waiting and waiting for this. Now he's getting it, and that, But every match, like, come on, man.
I think that's just part of the suspension of disbelief. It's part of it's part of the show, I guess. Because like. You talk about real life, people roll out of the ring, well, obviously, but also, real life, if some guy starts convulsing and shaking like Hulk Hogan's hulking up, and I punch him in the face, he's not going to point his finger like, you, and then I'm not going to get punched three times, and, I mean, all that's real life. If somebody throws me against the rope, I'm not going to fucking bounce back and come flying at him and get a big boot in the face or whatever, like...
I mean, I get where you're going with that, but I just think, like, that... To me, that's just, like, ridiculous. Like,
well, no, I agree. I mean,
the best part about it is, like, when it does come out of nowhere. Like,
no, I agree on that.
You watch MMA, man, so you can, like, imagine if, like, the guy told you, oh, I'm about to knock him out, then he knocks him out.
Right.
You wouldn't jump out of your chair and be like, oh, shit!
No, I agree that the out-of-nowhere finish has always been better because it is out of nowhere. Like, you're watching and you're like, oh, shit, and then it's over with, Whereas a telegraph, like stomping on the feet or anything, is not quite as exciting. But I just mean, like, don't shit on that gimmick because it's not realistic. I mean, nothing we're watching is realistic.
Well, it's so far fetched. I mean, granted, there are a lot of parts like the Undertaker.
I was just gonna say, hate to break it to you, but Taker's not dead. Just so you know.
Well, I don't know. That's just something I've always hated. I just drives me nuts. But yeah, back to Shelton Benjamin. I really thought like he was. I think he could have gone if he could have just had maybe an acting coach, someone to coach him up on the mic. I think he could have done really great things.
I wonder what happened with Shelton because he had a
He's
couple.
He's like a better version of Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy. Like Jeff Hardy knows how to wrestle. That's what's so upsetting about Jeff Hardy. He knows how to wrestle.
Yeah.
I think Shelton went to Ring of Honor, didn't he?
Yeah, I think I remember he was in Ring of Honor. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if he is now. Really follow Ring of Honor as much as I used to follow a lot more. I don't follow as much anymore. But last I heard, I think Shelton's down there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he was a better heel than. I think if they would have used him as a heel, he would have been a little bit better at it. I just think they had this real talented guy, and I really believe they just didn't know what to give him for a gimmick. You know, they just let him go out there and wrestle. And man, I remember how many times did JR say, you know, this kid has unlimited potential, but you know, potential won't buy you the groceries or anything like that. And you know, every time I heard that, it's like, you know, JR is pretty much saying it. You know, this guy is just missing one little thing. You know, basically the gimmick, and you know, this guy could have been. You know, who knows how big he would have been.
I thought he was good when he was with Charlie Haas as the world's greatest tag team. I thought that was... I
thought they were a great tag team. I was disappointed they broke up because it was. I knew they should have been a tag team longer to have them established, and then I think they just broke them up too soon. And
I think they just started out wrong as like Kurt Angle's bitches. You know, that's how they were pretty much, you know... I
actually didn't mind that at the time, just because they could wrestle really good matches. So I guess just at that time, I didn't really mind that gimmick. Or even when they became the world's greatest tag team, I liked that gimmick. I just think it was right after that. You know, when they split them up, because, you know, God, what happened to Charlie Haas after that happened? I mean, his career went straight nowhere after that.
Didn't he become that, like, impersonating people or something, where he'd come out there every week as a different old character?
I don't know. I just remember, I do remember something with him and Rico. That's all I remember, and he ended up marrying Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie Gata or whatever from Tough Enough. One of the seasons of Tough Enough, season 2, I think. Okay,
good for him.
Right. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the news. There's not a lot to talk about this week, just a couple quick things, and then we'll get into our top 10 countdown. But let's go ahead and jump into the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the main event. We're breaking down the latest news and giving reviews on everything that is professional wrestling.
First news story is obviously the one that everybody's talking about with a week before WrestleMania. Is Brock Lesnar's going into WrestleMania as the champion. The question is Brock Lesnar leaving the champion? And is Brock Lesnar leaving the WWE? And if so, where is he going? So, Shawn, we're going to start with you. We just want a prediction on this news story. Where do you think Brock Lesnar's going to end up? In the WWE? TNA, the UFC, Bellator, fucking somewhere in Minnesota, chill on his couch.
Well, I can immediately tell you we can throw TNA out the door for an option for Brock Lesnar. I think he would literally laugh if they offered him a deal. You know, when he first, appeared at the event, you know, it was almost pretty likely that that's where he was going, but you know, recent promos have been kind of showing that it looks like he might stick around. I would love for him to stick around. I think, you know, say what you will that he just never shows up, but every time he does, I watch. I mean, he is a special attraction. And I think, honestly, I think he ends up staying with WWE. I think they give him a last-minute deal where he sticks around for another year. So that's my prediction. I think he ends up staying with a last-minute deal because I think he can make more money for WWE, or he can make more money in WWE and have work less than, well, in my opinion, I think he would work less than UFC. I mean, you guys know UFC way more than I do, but it just seems like WWE, he wouldn't have the workload would be a little less, and he would probably make more money.
What do you think, Mike?
I honestly, if you would have asked me this a couple of weeks ago, I would have said he'd end up in TNA just for the simple fact that Brock Lesnar does not like getting punched. And he wants to go to MMA, but he cannot take a punch. He cannot take a... Well, the reason I say TNA is because TNA cross-promotes with Bellator.
Oh.
And he wants to do MMA.
Oh,
so I would see him going to Bellator for the easier heavyweights.
I gotcha.
That way it's not such stiff competition. So with that said, I would have thought that, maybe he's going to Bellator / TNA, because if he goes to Bellator, he's going to be in TNA, and then I could see them working an angle with him and Bobby Lashley, since Bobby Lashley's also in Bellator, and he does TNA here. So, but now with the interview that Paul Heyman did just this past Monday night, where he said he's going to hold the UFC and WWE title, it almost makes me wonder if Dana White is looking at starting to cross-promote with WWE in a sense, to where they can both cash in on Brock Lesnar, because Dana White and Vince McMahon, they do get along. There's no hate towards each other. CM Punk's there, but still nonetheless. So, I mean, at this point, I'll give WWE this. For the first time in a while, WWE has had me wondering what's going on. What are they doing? What is Brock really leaving? Because, maybe they're doing this because the last time everyone knew Brock was leaving, it was not pretty. And Brock put on probably the shittiest performance of his career.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, so maybe he is leaving, and this is just their way of saying, oh, no, he's going to stay. He's going to hold both. Because, they know the Internet's out there. There's some things you can try to ignore, but you can't ignore the Internet, and everyone knows, A lot of people who watch MMA watch WWE, or at least they may not watch it, week to week, but they kind of stay current, like how I have, in a sense. So I honestly, I don't know. I can honestly say I don't know, and that's one thing I can thank WWE for. But if he is leaving, then I just hope he puts on a better performance than he did 11 years ago.
I think you can. I think you can throw the cross promotion idea out the window. There's no way Vince McMahon's going to cross promote with anybody.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier in the week. As good as an idea as it is, and how great it looks on paper, McMahon is he just does not really cross promote like that.
No,
well then, and next, I don't mean necessarily cross promote where you're going to see WWE people and UFC and
no, but you mean share Brock Lesnar.
But to the fact to where Brock Lesnar will have something in his contract where he's allowed to compete in MMA.
Yeah,
almost, I remember Strikeforce would let their people compete in K1. I don't see it that far fetched, considering what Shawn just said. When Brock Lesnar's on, I turn to Raw. I'm watching.
Yeah.
So, if that's his only option, to let Brock Lesnar have UFC fights and still participate, I don't see them, necessarily throwing that out the window as much as they would, say if it was, say a CM Punk. Not that he's not talented or whatever, but he doesn't draw the people like Brock Lesnar does. We see it in the UFC pay-per-view buys. You see it on your, you'll watch Raw to hear Paul Heyman speak about Brock Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd probably put that at about 20%. But if he's going back to MMA, I really don't see him. Maybe he goes to the UFC, but Matt, you've seen it. I don't know if you've seen it, Shawn. The guy cannot take a punch. It's like the old adage that Mike Tyson said. Everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar is good until he gets punched in the face, then it's just all out the window.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, and I've been really digging the promos and everything, and even Brock. Brock has been. This is pretty sad. You're trying to, push Roman Reigns, and and if Brock were to leave, it does make me kind of wonder about the main event. I actually am a little interested in watching. Will at one point, we were talking, Matt, that WWE thinks the fans are automatically going to boo Brock if he leaves and cheer Roman Reigns. And like, I don't know. I think it might be the other way around. I think they'll realize how bad the product is, and they root for Brock to stay and everything like that. But, I mean, it does make the main event a little bit more interesting now, but for that reason. And, you know, and if Brock has every intention of re-signing and this is just all a plan to get us interested in the main event, bravo to him.
I'll tell you, I don't think that Brock Lesnar's going to the UFC or Bellator. I think he's staying put in the WWE. Like Mike said, that he's not equipped for, you know, mixed martial arts. He doesn't want to get hit for real. I don't know. I think in theory it sounds great. It's big money over there. Go over there, beat Frank Mir up or whatever. But I don't think he's going to go there. And honestly, in my own opinion,
I could see him going for that fight, Matt.
Well, I could see, like I said, in theory.
Fully hates Frank Mir, and Frank Mir started calling him out after his win over, I think it was Bigfoot. So yeah, Frank Mir got really high on his horse. And you know, at the end of the day, whether he's good at it or not, Brock is a competitor, and someone that he hates calling him out like that, I could almost see him just going for one fight, just to beat the shit out of Frank Mir and retire off that.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I can understand that, but I just don't think he's gonna. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think that I think he's staying with WWE, but I think that Brock Lesnar's already signed to stay with WWE. I don't think that it's one of these things that everybody on the internet's making it out to be, that we don't know until WrestleMania if Brock's staying or not, because Vince McMahon is not going to have another Montreal. You know, he's not going to have the champ walk into a pay-per-view and just pray to God this guy lays down and does business like he had to do with Bret Hart, and he had to screw Bret Hart. It's not going to happen. Either Brock, he would not still be the champion going into Mania if a contract extension was not signed long ago. Just because the dirt sheets don't know about it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. You know, Vince is getting older, he's getting senile, he's crazy, whatever. The guy ain't stupid. You're not letting Brock Lesnar walk in your the biggest show of the year with your championship belt and then just hope this guy's going to do business and lay down for Roman Reigns. And you know what? And more than likely, 99%, Brock walks in there, lays down, does the job, and gets the hell out of here and goes to UFC if that's the case. But what's that 1%? You know, there was no 1% that Bret Hart wasn't going to do business. I mean, he volunteered to lose the belt the next night on Raw, back in the States, whatever, but Vince still screwed him and did what he had to do. If you'll screw Bret Hart, you'll screw Brock Lesnar, because Brock Lesnar is far, far less loyal than Bret Hart ever was. So I really think that he's already signed the deal. He's not going anywhere. This is all just internet gossip. I don't think that there's anything to all these rumors that he's going to UFC. I think the whole thing's for show. I mean, you got to remember, the business that we're talking about, is a work. Everything is a work. Yeah,
true. And like I said, I think Brock has a hell of a deal. I mean, you know, he gets paid, and he only has to wrestle 3-4 times a year.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the guy gets paid, 6-7 figures, and he's got, 15 dates? 15 days a year, and you get paid, $600,000, $700,000, if not more than that. Who knows what he's getting paid, but I mean, he's getting paid some serious money for 15 days a year. Why would you go to UFC, where not only do you have to get in a real fight with somebody, but you have to have a training camp that lasts at least 6 weeks. So you have to prepare for 6 weeks, then get in the octagon and fight somebody for real. And if you get, if you beat their ass, great. If you get your ass kicked, you got to heal from that ass kicking that you just got. And then, guess what? In 3 more months, you got to have another 6-week camp and fight again. Because you got to fight at least twice a year, if not more. Probably twice a year if you're Brock Lesnar. But that's a hell of a lot more than 15 days to go in there and put on a show. In half those 15 days, you just got to go in the ring and pounce back and forth while Paul Heyman talks. You don't say a word. You don't do nothing. You just sit there and, kind of move back and forth, and Paul does the talking. And I mean, shit, give me that deal. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I was saying it earlier in the week. I mean, you talk about Brock Lesnar's deal. How about Sting's deal?
Yeah, Sting's got a good deal too, but the only thing about Sting is it makes sense. Sting is a special attraction beyond, in my opinion, beyond Brock Lesnar. Because Sting is in his 50s, we know it's coming to the end, and Sting's one of those guys, the less you see him, the more exciting that it is. The more you see him, because TNA, he was on every week, and I like Sting, I've always liked Sting, but on TNA, he's on every week, I really didn't care. I mean, I liked him, I'm always gonna like him, I watch his matches, but I wasn't geeking out, to see him. He was like, great, there's Sting. Comes on WWE, you see him at Survivor Series, I'm marked out. You had that, not No Way Out, what it's called now, Fastlane. Didn't quite have the reaction, but it was a little decent spot there. But then on Raw, he's beating people up to Randy Orton, and I was marking out again. I mean, I think that's awesome. He has it makes sense that he has that deal. Brock Lesnar being in his 30s and in great physical shape, he should be wrestling more and should be, not every month or every week, he should be on there.
Even if he's not wrestling, he should be there.
Yeah, I think he should be there, especially as the champion. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous when your champion wrestles at, like, the September event, Night of Champions, and then you don't see him again till the Rumble. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, and it wouldn't have been hard. I mean, you wouldn't even have to show up. I mean, you could have taped spots with him, even showed him training for his next match, or it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird. You wouldn't hear from him at all, And I think they could have done a lot with that too. I mean, that's fine if you want to make him a special attraction as your world champion. I understand that, but like I said, you could have still had like taped the segments with him in there too.
Yeah, I agree.
What's Sting's contract?
No one really knows for sure. It's limited dates, but
done after Mania.
There's rumors that Sting's contract was for like 6 days or something like that, 7 days, something like that. So it's supposed to be done after WrestleMania, the night after WrestleMania, but Sting's not going anywhere. He's wrestling next year at WrestleMania. There's tons of rumors for next year's Mania, but we'll discuss that our next week's podcast. Next week, the WrestleMania edition of our podcast. There's tons of rumors and things that, Mike, I know you don't follow the rumors that closely, so there's a couple that I'm sure you'll be interested in, but we'll discuss that on next week's WrestleMania podcast. But let's jump into the next news story real fast, and this is strictly a rumor. It's a pretty strong rumor, but still at this point has not been confirmed by WWE themselves. But the rumor is that Samoa Joe indeed did sign with the WWE. I know in our last podcast we were talking about if he was going to sign with WWE or where he was going to go, and it looks like he did sign with WWE. He's going to go to NXT. Shawn?
Oh, did he? See, I didn't hear anything about that.
You haven't heard anything about that?
No, I heard he was in negotiations, but I didn't hear like he actually signed.
Yeah, that's what I was reading. I think it was yesterday, the day before that, on one of the PW Insider or one of those sites that I visit. So that's why I said it's strictly a rumor. I don't want to say that it's confirmed, just because I don't. I take the dirt sheets with a grain of salt until you have something hard evidence. But it's pretty strong rumor from what they were saying. They were trying to say it's confirmed, but I don't really know if it's confirmed or not yet. No, we don't really know. But I think what do you think though if he does go to WWE? What do you think happens with him? Does he do good? Is he just going to be Fandango 2.0, or what happens? Is he MAGA?
What do we think is going to happen, or what do we think should happen?
What do you think is going to, and then what do you think should?
I think it'll be almost like a Ryback.
Think so?
Where he'll come in strong, and then next thing you know, and see, that's the thing for me, I haven't watched him, I just started watching currently again, and I'm looking at Ryback, and I'm like, what the hell? Wasn't this guy just, poised to be, the next Don, basically what Roman Reigns is right now?
Should have been.
Yeah, and he was even more over than Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I I could see them doing something like that, like how you said, Matt Umaga. You know, I could see them definitely doing that, and then just like jobbing the shit out of him, just on just the simple fact that he was such a great guy, such a big guy in this other organization. Let's kind of dog him out over here a little bit to kind of throw dirt on them. So I mean, I could see that happening. Unfortunately,
what do you think?
I think they should put.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I pretty much agree with Mike. Whatever they do, it'll seem like a good idea at the time. He'll get over with the fans, and then for whatever reason or another, the WWE will drop the ball on him, and his career will start to flounder. So, but besides that, I honestly don't know. I wouldn't even be surprised if, I hope this doesn't happen, but I wouldn't even be surprised if he doesn't go from, he just stays in NXT, and, Triple H doesn't bring him to the main roster. I don't think that'll happen, but I wouldn't be surprised just knowing what WWE is.
I don't think he's going to get to keep the Samoa Joe name either. I think they're going to have to give him a new name, rebrand him a little bit, which is too bad because I like the chant that Joe's going to kill you chant. I've always thought that was kind of funny. But
doesn't he have rights to his name?
Well, I'm sure that he does.
If
he
you
used
want,
it from.
Could they legally keep his name? Is what I'm getting at.
Oh yeah, legally, yeah, because he had it in Ring of Honor and TNA. Neither one of them own, and now he's wrestling back at Ring of Honor again for the temporary, and he's back as Samoa Joe. So he has the name, but
I think they might keep it. I think it just
because it's WWE, and they want to
put their stamp on everything, like the Vigilante Sting. Like, give me fucking break. It's Sting, not the Vigilante Sting. Sting, you know,
or the man they call Sting.
Right? Yeah, it's just it's not. They have to put their stamp on there. So now he's gonna be like Samoan Joe or something, maybe. Like I could,
I'd be okay with that.
Like that, yeah, that's okay if they can do something like that, but don't have him come out there with some brand new fucking name saying he's one of the Uso brothers or something. There's a long lost cousin.
Okay.
They found him in the back alleys of fucking.
They'll bring him in as a relative of Roman Reigns.
Oh,
that's what they're going to do. He's going to feud with Roman Reigns. He's going to be third Samoan cousin or some shit.
Probably.
Boom.
Yeah, who knows?
As long as he beats Roman Reigns, that's fine.
I'd be okay with that.
And that would actually be a good storyline to bring him in on, because you push him right to the top already. You have him almost like a Kane Taker type deal.
Yeah, but knowing WWE, he's not getting pushed anywhere near the top. He's gonna be a mid-carder at best. If he's lucky, he'll be
depending on how the crowd reacts to him and how the crowd keeps reacting to Reigns.
Yeah,
because if people keep on shitting on Reigns and they just react to Samoa Joe like, he's the best thing since sliced bread, you never know. Maybe they'll... I know there's putting a lot of faith in them, but...
I think Daniel Bryan will have a problem with that.
On the wall.
Yeah, I was going to say Daniel Bryan's kind of the... I hope you're right. I really, really do. But I think Daniel Bryan's a good example of, we don't care what the fans are chanting.
Yeah, no, I agree.
This year.
I think it would be great if he got pushed to the top because, I followed Samoa Joe since Ring of Honor days when he wrestled Daniel Bryan when he was Bryan Danielson. So, and I've always liked Joe, and the matches he had with Kurt Angle when Angle first came in TNA were really good, and those matches with AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels were really good. Like, Joe can work it, but the thing with Joe is, one, he's got to get back in shape because he's way too out of shape right now. There's no way he's going to go anywhere near WWE, the main roster, looking the way he does. But I just don't see... I just don't see I don't know. I just don't see Vince seeing anything in Joe, like putting him at the top. I just don't. I don't see it. I think he's going to be like a Umaga type of wrestler. He might come in and be dominant with the mid card people, and then he'll probably get put with John Cena and get beat, and that'll be the end of him.
You know what's fun? Like what I think what Vince is holding on to is like the Hulk Hogan, Bruno Sammartino images of wrestlers. When you look at it most recently, outside of John Cena, the most over wrestlers have been your average Joe. I mean, no pun intended there, but like your Daniel Bryan, your CM Punk. I mean, they're just like your walk of the mill guys. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he wasn't in great shape, so maybe someone can get in Vince's ear. And Matt, you brought something up, and it just reminded me when we were watching it at your computer on Hutchins. Remember when Kurt first debuted? When someone posted the video?
Oh yeah, the cell phone video.
How it was shaking and shit.
Oh,
wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was nuts when Kurt debuted in TNA. We had that cell phone footage that we got to see before it was on TV, and that fucking place, I mean, it was just the Impact Zone, but that place erupted. It was crazy.
I just remember I was just beyond shocked because at the time, he was telling Vince, I'm, having these issues, and then a month later, he's in TNA, and I remember being in shock and then thinking, man, Vince has got to be blowing a gasket right now.
Well, they offered to less travel. If you're a family man, that makes perfect sense. If they're going to pay you the same as well, you've already made your mark on the big stage. You have nothing to prove. Mm-hmm. So you mean to tell me I work less, make the same amount, get to spend time with my family?
Yeah.
And I work in Florida, of all places.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't have to travel to Minnesota or, New York in the winter or any of that. I get to be in Florida all year long. And then, we'll get a pay-per-view here and there. Sure.
And this is kind of off the subject, but when at the time LeBron James went to Miami, they're all giving him shit. I was like, oh, yeah, he wants to go to Florida and play with his friends. Excuse the hell out of him. Live in Miami and do your job. Yeah, wow. He's such a shit. So, I mean, that's a different subject for a different time. But, yeah, it's the same thing with Kurt Angle. It's like, oh, yeah, move down to to Florida, spend time with my kids, heal a little bit better because I won't have to work as much. Yeah, why not? I think that's one of the reasons Jeff Hardy's still there. He doesn't have to do the schedule that he once had. And, would I like him to be back in the WWE? Sure. But, if it works out for him and his family right now, then,
Well, even Brock Lesnar said when he first started the UFC that the WWE, it was harder doing WWE than it was UFC. Back when he was, not a special attraction. He said that it was much, much harder doing that than it was doing MMA.
Yeah, and weren't they even willing to give him, his own plane and everything like that, and he just still didn't want to, do the traveling and stuff like that? I think that was one of the rumors I would hear was, they would offer him all this traveling convenience that they would normally wouldn't give to other people. But he just still didn't want to do all the traveling.
I think I heard that rumor. I don't know if that was ever confirmed, but I remember hearing the rumor.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, let's go ahead to the last topic briefly here for the news section. Is it's rumored and hopefully confirmed by the T-shirt that was prematurely had the graphic release for it that this Monday night in Raw that Kevin Nash is going to be announced to go into the Hall of Fame as the character of Diesel. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame, but not only is Kevin Nash as Diesel going in the Hall of Fame, the rumor is that Kevin Nash is going to close the Hall of Fame as the headliner of the Hall of Fame and not Macho Man Randy Savage, apparently because Macho is deceased and cannot accept the award, and his brother Lonnie Poffo will accept the award Vince thought that it would be better to end on a high note with Kevin Nash as somebody who can actually be there in person to accept the award versus Macho. So Kevin Nash will be known as the headliner of this year's Hall of Fame. Mike, I know you probably have some pretty harsh feelings about this. So what do you think? Kevin Nash headlining over the Macho Man at the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think we both will have strong opinions on this.
Honestly, I see where Vince is coming from. You know, you want the headliner to be there. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like I'm happy that Macho's finally getting his dues. So it's mixed feelings. You know, I guess, you know, like being in a supervisor role that I was at my job, like I can see it from his side, you know, but as the fans, you know, this is one of those things where I honestly don't feel that you can make a bad decision either way.
That's surprising.
You know?
I really thought you were going to be mad about this. I really did.
Macho Man, we know in our heart of hearts that Macho Man is. The fans know that, you know, and we all know if Macho Man was alive, that there'd be no question, you know, no doubt about it, you know, who the headliner would be. The fact that he's not there and he can't give a, you know, thank you speech to close it, I completely get that. You know, and on the flip side, I could definitely see where, you know, like, you know what, he's the Macho Man. He did so much. He was so huge for, you know, this industry, not only here in WWE, but WCW, you know, so I can get to where they could, I can understand both sides of it. So I guess in that sense, I'm not too mad about it, just because, like, I mean, honestly, when you're watching, wouldn't you rather, like, but then again, I can see them going out with a tribute to Macho Man. So I mean, this is the first I've heard of it. So
well, I'll tell you what,
you know,
man.
I haven't had time to sit and like really analyze it and pick it apart. But you know, so right when you first mentioned it, I'm thinking, okay, I can see that, but I can see this. So I mean, I don't think there's a wrong way either way. I think either way works. You can go out with Macho Man or Kevin Nash. Now, if they went out with the Bushwhackers, oh, fuck yeah, I'd have a problem. You know what I mean? Or like a celebrity. But Kevin Nash is big enough and has done enough as well in this industry to where it's not that much of a slap in the face. If he was just some mid-card filler that they were using to put in the Hall of Fame, like Larry Zbyszko. Nothing against Larry Zbyszko. He deserves it more than a lot of others that have gone in. But if he had gone in as the finisher, as the headliner, I'd have a problem with that. Kevin Nash, I don't have a problem with it.
Well, let me tell you, I do have a problem with it, man. And you know, Mike, that I was as big a Diesel fan as anybody. I mean, I was a huge Diesel fan when he came in, and then became a huge Kevin Nash fan, and I still to this day am a huge fan. And I get, you know, the thing about not want to go out a sour note because Macho's not alive. The reason why I have a problem with it is because Macho should have been in years ago when he was alive.
Yep.
Like, that's the whole thing. Like, I get, okay, he can't be there because he's deceased. But that's fucking Vince's fault that he didn't fucking put him in the Hall of Fame, you know, years ago when he should have gone in.
But, Matt, if Macho had gone in when he was supposed to go in, he would not have headlined. He would have been co-main event to that red and yellow piece of shit.
Well, no, I mean, he could have gone in the following year. He didn't have to go in the same year as Hogan. He could have gone in the following year, you know, or any of those years that he could before. He passed away in, 2010?
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of years he could have gone in. Didn't he do a
commercial for WWE? Like, he was kind of starting to get right back into their good gracious. So, I mean, I think at the time that's when he was going.
Yeah, one of those wrestling games, THQ games. I don't know what it was, but one of those games they touted it. That was Macho Man back in the wrestling, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
the first time in years. He could have gone to the Hall of Fame that year, and he was still alive, and he would have been the headliner because besides Hulk Hogan, for who's gone in as headliners, who bigger than Macho? Like, really? I mean, come on.
Right. I agree.
Well, can I just say what my major issue is with this?
Of course.
I I have no problem with Kevin Nash being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I don't. He deserves it. Whether you want to do it as Kevin Nash, Diesel, that's perfectly fine. You want him to headline over the Macho Man, that's perfectly fine. But why the fuck are you waiting until the go-ahead edition of Raw to announce it? Like, when you've announced it as one of almost at the beginning, like Kevin Nash. I just, the timing is horrible. I don't get it. I mean, you already mentioned Bushwhackers, Larry Zbyszko. I think even they just named some Japanese guy going into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Why are we waiting until the last second to announce Kevin Nash in the Hall of Fame? I mean,
maybe it
that's
was
one thing I don't get with. Maybe. It's just one of the things I can't stand about WWE. Waiting until the very last minute to get something done. I don't know. That was my huge issue with it, is just put them in. You know, if you're going to, I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe the deal just wasn't finalized, but.
No, I agree with you, Shawn. I agree with you, Shawn. I think that if the deal wasn't finalized, then you wait till next year to put Diesel in and Kevin Nash in, because I know.
Like, then you have a headliner for next year, because you're really fucking running out now.
Well, I mean, like, there's a lot of people that maybe, like we did, WrestleMania 21. I would have never gone to WrestleMania 21 unless Hogan got in the Hall of Fame. If they would have announced Hogan on the Monday before WrestleMania, it would have been fucking hell for us to get a hotel, a plane ticket, a Hall of Fame ticket.
You know, hold on, Shawn. You notice how he said it would have been hell for us to get it? Not that we wouldn't have gone.
Oh, no. Let's not get crazy here. We're going. Let's not get crazy.
Yeah.
Not like, they announced it like the Monday before. We wouldn't be able to go. No. We would have still went.
Well, obviously, we're still going to.
Friggin' asses for it.
Right. We're still going to go. I mean, but most
right
people.
Now, it's just like, do you want to go to Extreme Rules in Chicago? I don't know.
most people, though, are not crazy like I am about Hulk Hogan that would fucking spend thousands of dollars to go see the Hall of Fame. Most people are probably big Kevin Nash fans, and I'm a big Kevin Nash fan, but they're not like, well, I got, 6 days until Mania. Kevin Nash just got announced on the Hall of Fame. Let's go spend a couple $1,000s on, scalping tickets and shit like. But if they would announce that shit 2 months ago, or the night after Royal Rumble, maybe people would have had more time. It's just like, so I agree with Shawn. Like, if he's your headliner, then he should have been announced right away. And you cannot tell me that they don't have, being that Triple H is like the second guy in charge now, the communication and the connection to Kevin Nash to get that deal done a long time ago.
Well, you know how Nash is all about the money. Nash is about money, so who knows what contract negotiations were going on, like how much they were going to pay him, what number he wanted, what they finally met on, agreed upon. And if, it just came down to the last minute and Nash decided, okay, fuck it, I wanted $100,000, I'll do it for 80 or, whatnot. So, I mean, I honestly do believe if they had the deal, I don't think this is something they had in their pocket the entire time and they just now revealed. I don't think that at all.
I'm
not wanting to give them credit, to give WWE credit, but I think if this was something that they knew they were going to do, then they would have done it already, and we would have probably even seen appearances by Nash on Raw a couple times, 1 or 2 times, maybe even with Sting, or, So I think that they would have, if they had this, they would have used it and had him make some appearances too. I don't think this is, just the last, by the way, type thing.
Well, and, I was telling you this, Matt, that I was going to mention too. I mean, okay, you put Kevin Nash, Randy Savage in, that's fine. Besides, at this point, Sting, The Undertaker, and The Rock, who can you really get to headline a Hall of Fame at this point? On the top of my head, I really can't think of anybody right now. I mean, they're just running out of people.
Let's all take 20 seconds and think. You said Sting, Undertaker, Rock. Rock's in.
Well, no, I'm not saying they're, whether they are or not. I'm just saying who are you going to get to headline for the next few years for the Hall of Fame is what I'm saying.
knowing. That's why they should.
Right, exactly. So that's why I probably would have maybe held off Nash for next year, or unless you're planning on putting The Rock and The Undertaker, but
Rock's already
or Sting.
Is The Rock going in? Or was Dad that he announced in?
I think The Rock just announced his dad was in the Hall of Fame. I don't think The Rock's in the Hall of Fame yet. Is he?
No, he's not in the Hall of Fame. He inducted his dad and grandfather in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. What about Stone Cold? Is he in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, he's in.
Is Rock
I've actually been rewatching the
wrestling.
WrestleManias, and 25. I just watched 25 today, and that was the one with Austin.
Or was Rock inducted in WrestleMania that was in Miami?
No, he was never inducted. He just wrestled.
For some reason.
So yeah, he's not a Hall of Famer right now, officially.
You need Benoit in there. That's who needs to go in the Hall of Fame. That's a headline.
I don't know. After a while, if you start running out of people, you may have to.
I think they'll put T.L. Hopper in there before Benoit.
I mean, it's sad because we've talked about it, I think, about 2 or 3 times. Like, just the Hall of Fame is just ridiculous. Like, there's no prestige to it. Do it every 3 years. You know, I mean, you're inducting people that have no right whatsoever even speaking the words Hall of Fame.
Yeah, when I was watching WrestleMania 25, they were re-showing who got inducted, and I forgot Coco Beware somehow, some way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Got inducted. I mean, that's like saying R-Truth is a Hall of Famer. Which probably will happen in 10 to 20 years. Yeah, exactly. Give him time. He'll somehow get in.
The rate they're going, the Ascension's going to be in there.
There was the Iron Sheik, Paul Orndorff, and Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main. Iron Sheik, that was hands down the best Hall of Fame induction ever was the Sheik. That guy was, oh my God.
That dude's nuts.
It was awesome.
That dude's
and Paul
nuts,
Orndorff,
man.
that was a great Hall of Fame. Now it's like
that was good.
We're going to have one guy and then a bunch of fillers. And that's all they are.
That's what it seems like. Yeah, because like Alundra Blaze, Medusa is going in this year.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck did she get in there? Like, she threw the women's championship in a trash can. But I'm thinking in my head, okay, you wanted a woman for this year, obviously. I can understand that. I can respect that. But wouldn't it have made more sense to induct Miss Elizabeth the year Macho Man's going in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, no doubt.
And you can't tell me that Miss Elizabeth does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
No, I agree. Miss Elizabeth or...
Blackson?
I was trying to think of other divas that had a little bit more of an impact or who I rather watched, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. But, God, I mean, I would rather have seen Victoria be inducted in Alundra Blaze. I only remember Alundra Blaze for maybe a year.
Yeah, especially because she did more in her career as Medusa, but they induct her as Alundra Blaze, and if that's how they want to go off of it, just induct the characters that they own the rights to. Alundra Blaze didn't do shit. Alundra Blaze, she a couple of years back there in the early 90s with Bull Nakano and stuff, but like, she ain't do nothing. How's she getting in there over Miss Elizabeth?
I would have put Luna in over her.
Oh yeah, fucking Luna Vachon. She could have gone in, man.
Yeah.
I liked her. She was good. There was a lot of...
Has Lex Luger been inducted yet?
No, I don't believe so. No, Luger hasn't been in there yet.
No. That would have been a good pick.
He could be a good headliner some year. He was good in WCW and had that Hulk Hogan ripoff gimmick in the WWE for a little bit there. Unfortunately,
and it's funny you brought that up. But Bret Hart was recently interviewed, and he kind of compared him and Lex Luger to the Daniel Bryan Roman Reigns, where Lex Luger was supposed to be the guy, and the fans just couldn't. They'd rather watch Bret Hart, and that's why Bret Hart got the push more than Luger. And he said he compares that, and I never really thought of it like that. It kind of is the Lex Luger Bret Hart of '94, only this time. They really are going against what the fans want. But, yeah, I thought that was an interesting interview. And, yeah, you bring it up, Lex Luger, just reminded me of that.
Let's go ahead and it's time for the weekly top 10. And this week
we're counting down the greatest of all time. It's the top 10.
We're doing the top 10 greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. I'm looking forward to this one, and I think the best thing about the greatest matches of WrestleMania of all time is it's extremely subjective. It's about what you look for in a match. I think me and Shawn, we talked about this a week or so ago, about how, you know, some people look for the psychology, some people like the high spot, some people like the chain wrestling. There's so many different things in professional wrestling that make up a match, so I think it's really subjective, and I think I'm assuming, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably right, that our top 10, unlike the last two top 10 we've done that have kind of had a strong similarities, I think our top 10 this time around, the three of us, is going to be a lot different. I think that I know my top 10 is probably going to be a lot different than your guys', as I look at wrestling a little bit different. So I'm looking forward to taking this trip down memory lane with the top 10.
Yeah, me too.
Give me one moment here. I'm gonna go grab a pen, and I'm gonna mark how many that we each agreed on.
Okay.
Give me.
But
yeah, and what was great about this top 10, I felt, is, you know, you said it best, Matt, you know, our, you know, different versions, you know, you know, we were talking about The Undertaker earlier. He was, you know, The Undertaker is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, and then we were talking about this earlier, too, at work. Would I put The Undertaker as the top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time at number one? No. You know, because if we're putting top 10 greatest wrestlers, which would take me forever probably to do, you know, I'm not looking at just in-ring performance. You know, I'm looking at other stuff as well. But with this top 10, I really did look at mostly in-ring performance, like which one, you know, really entertained me. I was always the one that, you know, I loved The Undertaker. I even liked watching Hogan. I was always more the technical guy, the high flyers, you know, maybe because I am smaller, and that was who I gravitated towards. So my top 10, you know, kind of, not to give too much away, you know, not a lot of giant, you know, heavy giant guy matches.
So you like more of the technical side of things, the more
speed, counter, you know, moves, counter moves. I do like the finishers out of nowhere type deals. So
yeah, I think like that. That makes sense, because I know a lot of people are like that. With me, with my top 10, it was more about ring psychology. I like a lot of the ring psychology, the fan interaction, and a big thing that I did with my top 10, because I went back and I watched. I must have watched about 40 or so matches that I had in my that I wrote down, and I went back and watched them, and I went back which one still held up to today, and also how did these matches make me feel as an audience member, as you know, watching on TV, like, because
that's exactly what I did with mine.
Is that what you did too? Because that's what, to me, even to this day, wrestling is always about how it makes you feel. Like, I gravitate towards certain wrestlers because I relate to them, or I look up to them, or I feel like, oh, that's just a good guy, or that's a no good for nothing, dirty, rotten. You know, I hate that guy. You know,
right? But
if I don't care about you, I don't care about your match. You could be the greatest wrestler in the world. Like, no disrespect to Lance Storm, he was a great technical wrestler in the ring, but he had the personality of a wet cloth. Like, that guy just had nothing going for him.
Serious for a moment.
Right, yeah, so to me, that eliminates a lot of the technical stuff. But I think when you find that perfect storm, the technical stuff, the psychology, the audience participation, the way it made you feel.
HBK.
Yeah, HBK, he's a Mr. WrestleMania. What about you, Mike? So Shawn looked for more of the technical, high-flying type of matches for his top 10. I went with more of the ring psychology, how a match made me feel as a viewer. When you made your top 10,
real quick, too, I did that, too, when I watched it. I remember watching it when I was whatever age when that match happened, and how it made me feel. So, I mean, that definitely contributes to it, too.
Mine, I was kind of on one of my picks. It was just all about what it was for the industry. But I mean, it's like watching the match. Like, was it a good? It has to have both for me. It can't just be one or the other. And as we dive in, one of my picks is just basically it was one. It didn't have both. But to me, it has to have both. You can't just, it can't just be, oh, that was a great technical match, but, it didn't have any kind of crowd reaction. Or, oh, it had great crowd reaction, but the match was garbage.
Right.
So, for me, it had to be both.
That makes sense.
So,
yeah.
So, and I want, a lot of mine, I'm looking at like, there's a lot of HBK here. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm the same.
Maybe that's what and I don't know if it's so much because he was my favorite or because he was actually that good at doing both. I mean, if he needed to brawl, if it was a brawling type match, he'd brawl. There's just I'm looking at this list and I'd just like to throw my honorable mention out there, who I honestly believe is. That match was better than my top 10.
Don't do your honorable mention yet, though. Remember, we do the honorable mention before the number one pick. Don't go busting it out yet.
I do gotta ask real quick as a little spoiler. Does anyone have a John Cena match in their top 10? Because I don't.
Oh.
Well, that's my number one pick is John Cena and The Miz. So.
John Cena
spoiler.
Never even crossed my mind.
No, I never.
Nope, me neither.
I never thought of John Cena, but I'm more of a nostalgia guy. I don't have a lot of the recent shit in mind, so I don't have a lot that what John Cena would have anything to do with at all. But it didn't cross my mind at all. John Cena, no.
Okay, good. No, I guess not that. I mean, I respect people's opinions, but. I figure you guys wouldn't.
I do until they say John Cena.
You what?
Then you lose. I do until they say John Cena. Then you lose all respect, all credibility.
Being too hard on John
Cena and The Rock at WrestleMania 28.
Oh Jesus! All right, well, hey, let's go ahead and jump in the top 10 countdown. Shawn, let's go ahead and start with you. Who do you have at your number 10 match?
Number 10 from WrestleMania 3, the Intercontinental title match between Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and the Macho Man Randy Savage. What I still remember watching this match. I was probably like 5 or 6. Didn't really notice it a whole lot, but as years went on, I would watch it more and more. And I think what was so great about that match was, obviously Hogan and Andre was the main event. That's what everyone was coming out to see. And everything else was kind of like, we were talking about it with the Hall of Fame. You only really want to see people here and there and everyone else in between. And I think that's almost how they viewed the Intercontinental title match between Savage and Steamboat. And I don't think really anyone was backstage was thinking, well, I don't want to say it like that, but I don't think they expected them to have the match that they did. And, it was such a great match. And you really didn't see a lot of that in WWE back in the 80s. So that's where I put it. That's what I put at number 10.
Mike, what do you have at number 10?
number 10, and remember how I said how with my list I wanted both?
Right.
Number 10 did not have both for me. Also WrestleMania 3, Hogan versus Andre.
Hogan versus Andre, okay.
Just based on the pure fact of what that match was, what that main event did. So that's how that made my top 10. And I put it. I mean, it was it had its spot, like the body slam, especially after a couple of failed ones. It was huge. It was a huge match, but like I have. Much like the Iron Man match, I feel that this match is, excuse me, highly, highly overrated. I mean, what it did for the sport was great, but the match itself, to me, it did not deliver. And most big men matches don't. I know Hogan was kind of considered a small man because Andre was so huge, but anytime we've seen like a big man match or like the Clash of the Titans that you always want to see, they never deliver. Brock Goldberg, Taker Kane, Big Show Taker, Big Show Kane, Hogan Andre. I honestly believe the Hog Wild match with Big Show and Hogan was better than this, but for what it did for the industry, it made my top 10 at number 10.
Okay, that's interesting. They didn't seem too high in the match, but out of 30 years, you put it at number 10 there. Okay. Well, my top 10, number 10 pick was from WrestleMania 8. I went with Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ric Flair. I thought Macho and Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8, it should have been Hogan and Flair, but what we got was Macho and Flair and Hogan and Sid. Macho and Flair, I love the storyline that led up to it. At that time in wrestling, it was not edgy. It wasn't, it wasn't what it is, the Attitude Era. But you had Flair out there talking about Miss Elizabeth. She was mine before she was yours. And if anybody knows Savage, that shit made him irate. Flair was talking about, I'm going to reveal this nude picture of Miss Elizabeth at WrestleMania 8. And when that match started, Flair and Macho went nuts, was beating the hell out of him. It was a great match. The psychology of that match was really good. I love the ending when Flair kisses Miss Elizabeth and Miss Elizabeth starts smacking the hell out of him, and then Macho runs after him and they brawling after the match. And I think the greatest thing about that match was the ending. That Macho Man got the win on Ric Flair by hooking the tights. He hated him so much that Macho cheated. As the babyface, Macho cheated to win. But, I mean, just the psychology of that match. And it was a great match from a technical standpoint. I mean, you got Savage and Flair. Come on, they're both technical beasts at that time.
Yeah.
But I thought the match was super good.
Macho was the first Stone Cold?
Oh, I think so. Macho was nuts. I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Macho was, Macho was so cool because, he was flamboyant. He had the bright colors. But he was fucking crazy.
He marched to his own beat.
Yeah, he was just his own man. He was crazy, but he looked like, he looked one way, he acted another way, and he would talk a lot of shit, but he could back it up in the ring. He had a very distinctive voice. He was just a great all-around character and performer. Yeah, I can't say highly enough about Macho, but I really enjoyed that match as well. And yeah, go ahead.
One thing I remember from that match that I still love to this day was the post-interview that Savage does. It's probably one of Savage's best promos that he ever did. Was I think the main thing I loved about was Mr. Perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And I apologize. I can't do my Macho Man with this cold right now. But I think how he goes is, I don't want the whole jerk boy. I don't want the whole Flair package. And I just love that promo. It was probably one of his best. And it was after the match. That's what I loved about it, too. So, he just put on like a 20-minute match, and, here he is doing a promo like as if, he's even looking like he just went 12 rounds.
Yeah, he wanted to go again, probably. He didn't care. Macho's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn, who do you have at number 9?
Number 9, I put the Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Boss. No. The Undertaker and Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the referee from WrestleMania 28. The main reason I really liked this match was, even if you weren't a wrestling fan, they told a story. And if, like, let's say you were watching wrestling for the first time, you knew the story. You know, it was almost like telling the story without any words or anything like that. These guys just beat the hell out of each other. You know, back, you know, to this day, they don't allow wrestlers to, you know, cut themselves in that. And, you know, Triple H, you know, legitimately got busted open a little bit. Triple H, like, doing a spine buster on Undertaker on the steel steps and the repeated chair shots. I mean, you just look at Undertaker's back after that match. And then, you know, the main thing, too, the ending of that match where they all embraced. I, for one, at that time, thought that was going to be it for The Undertaker. I thought, you know, he was going to, you know, 20-0. You know, that's a good number. And, you know, right off into the sunset. You know, he took a hell of a beating. And they all embraced each other, showing how much they respected each other after all those years. And they were kind of, you know, Triple H Undertaker at that time. Well, even though they still wrestle now, they're the last two of that kind, you know, the Attitude Era or the, you know, the era with Shawn Michaels. So that's what I put at number 9.
Yeah, I thought that was a good match. I didn't make my top 10, but I did enjoy that match. I remember watching that match, and the only thing I kept thinking of that match is I kept thinking that Shawn Michaels was going to screw The Undertaker. Like, every time that Triple H would put on some kind of submission hold or something, I was like, yeah, Shawn's going to ring the bell. They're gonna fucking... Because, like, I just thought, like, in my head, it almost, like, it's one of those matches, unfortunately, for me, where knowing too much ruins it. Like, you know what happens behind the scenes. Yeah. And I kept thinking in my head, well, yeah, Triple H, he'd love to be the guy to go in the record books to end the streak, you know, I mean, and they'll use Shawn as a screw job ending to give Triple H that win, but the record book will still show that Triple H broke the streak. And I remember thinking that in my head, and it kind of took me out of the match a little bit, because I was just thinking about, you know, backstage shit that I probably shouldn't be thinking about when I'm trying to enjoy a show. But
see, I didn't even remotely. This is what I loved about the match. I didn't remotely think Triple H was going to break the streak at all. I didn't think Shawn Michaels was going to screw. I mean, he did the super kick thing, which I wasn't surprised with or anything like that. I just remember going into it knowing this was just how I went into it. Was, you know, Undertaker, Triple H are going to go into it like, hey, let's upstage Cena and Rock. And they did. And I knew they were. You know, I'd like, wow, Hell in a Cell.
Well,
like,
that wasn't hard to do.
Right. Those two are going to beat the hell out of each other. And you know Triple H, you know, he has an ego. He doesn't want to be upstaged by people. So I knew full well him and Taker were going to steal the show, and they did.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, what do you got at number 9?
Number 9, it could probably be placed higher, but just because it was a rematch, HBK Taker 2.
Oh, okay.
Like I think if this was the only match they had, it'd be higher on my list. But just because HBK Taker 1 was so phenomenal,
right?
It's hard to not compare the two. You know, and I mean, this is honestly, I feel like these are the stakes that should have been on the first one, and that would have made the first one even better. I mean,
absolutely.
Freak versus career. I mean, and like, so like, you honestly thought that Shawn, you know, like, this was the first time I actually thought Taker's streak was at risk, because, you know, you have the career of Shawn Michaels, especially after the performance put on,
Year prior.
you know, in the first. So it's like, he's like, you know, I'm going, this is it, you know. And it was a great match, as always. I mean, like, I could go on for hours and hours about any time, you know, Shawn steps in the ring, you know, like, he's my favorite wrestler, you know, almost like, you know, my favorite rapper is Eminem, you know, just to use a reference, you know, like, when Eminem was kind of down and out, like, the songs he released were meh, but anytime, like, he was on someone else's fucking song, he would just kill it, and, you know, Shawn, you know, he brought it, Taker brought it, and, you know, I think they, you know, while they have animosity, I think they also have a mutual respect, and maybe, you know, Shawn brought something out of Taker that, you know, we haven't seen in a while. I mean, we've seen it in the Master Units, but it was just a great match. There's just, you know, but like I said, it's kind of, when the first one is that good, it's kind of hard to top it, and I don't think they topped it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think so either.
So that, you know, that's why it's so much. That's why it's number 9. Like I said, if that match itself was the only match they had, it'd be higher up. But it wasn't the first match they had, so I kind of have to compare the two.
Right. You know, I agree. It was a great match, but because of the other match being so good, 1 year difference,
and it was only 1 year prior. It wasn't like Triple H where he fought Undertaker at WrestleMania 17, and then here we are way down the road. Right. It was the year before, too.
No, I agree. So that took away from it because you'd watch that match and you were still fresh from the match the year prior, and it was a great match, but it didn't live up to the year prior. It's like if you watch a sequel to a movie and it's a good movie, but it's not as good as the first one. It's, you know, it still takes away from, like, Die Hard 2 was good, but it wasn't as good as Die Hard, so it's not solely as good as a movie, you know. It's
Die Hard with a Vengeance was the shit, though.
Oh, that was a great movie. Yeah, that was a good one.
Hey, Dark Knight is 10 times better than Batman Begins, just saying.
That is very true. That is very true.
Okay.
That's a different podcast, though. My number 9 is a match that I don't know. This match is hard for me to put it on my list, but for me, I had to. This match damn near destroyed my childhood.
I know what it is.
I have a feeling.
Number 6?
WrestleMania 6. Yeah, Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. At that time, you know, 1990. Hogan was at the top of his game. Warrior's coming up. It was definitely not a, you know, technical Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle kind of match, you know, WrestleMania 20. It wasn't something like that. It was two big guys, two behemoths in there battling, but the psychology, the crowd reaction, the way that it made me feel, because I know when I'm watching it, 1990, I'm like 9 years old, I think. I'm watching this match, and a glimmer of thinking that, because I'm watching it with my cousin, and my cousin, fucking idiot, is an Ultimate Warrior fan, and I'm obviously diehard Hulk Hogan, so we're battling back and forth in the living room watching this. My dad's with me, his dad's. It was a great family moment, like, but I don't know, just the way that match felt, and then the ending obviously happens, and the Warrior wins, and it just destroyed me inside. I was like, oh, God, I can't believe this fucking guy beat Hogan. This is not supposed to happen. Something went wrong, whatever. But, and then so I'm thinking, I went back and I watched this match about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, when we were going to do the countdown here, and I went back and I said, okay, I got to watch this match again, because now it doesn't bother me that Warrior won. I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm going to go watch this. And I watched it, and the psychology is still there. It's still a beautifully crafted match, and I love the ending. That Warrior does win, but if you watch it, Hogan technically kicks out right at the 3. So he's
one of those. Huh?
So
I mean, I was gonna say I could say that about another match,
but that was good in for the story, and I don't know. I thought that it was a really good match. I almost didn't put it on my top 10 just because there are other matches that are probably better to watch nowadays. But because of the way that match made me feel, the impact that it had on me personally. For my top 10, I had to put it on there. It had to go to high spot, but it had to go on there. It was just it's a good match that still I can still watch today and still get those feelings that you only get from a professional wrestling match. So.
Shawn? I will speak more on it, but it's on my list, so I'll wait.
Wow, you have a higher than number 9. Okay. Shawn, let's go to you. Number 8. What you got?
Well, mine's kind of you kind of already spoiled it, Mike, but I put Shawn Michaels Undertaker 2 at number 8. Pretty much everything you just said is what I can say about this match. I mean, it definitely did, live up to the first one, which, I mean, it was going to be almost damn near impossible to do. But, it was Shawn Michaels' last match. The match is so good. I mean, the fact that he was, 44 years old, and my favorite part of that match is Taker's on the table, and Shawn Michaels does the moonsault all the way from there, and, it just made me realize how much... I mean, I'm like you, Mike. Shawn Michaels is probably my favorite all-time overall performer. And that match just showed, too, it's like, even though he retired, like, he still probably could have gone another 5 years if he really wanted to. And, the fact that I can still put this in my top 10, and I'm saying it was nowhere near the match that they had the first time, it still means that it was a pretty damn good match that they had. And, it closed out the show, and it was just a great match. I mean, I loved everything about it till Shawn retired. I was kind of hoping he would win that one. So, that's what I put at number 8.
And I mean, like, who better to end the streak than Mr. WrestleMania?
WrestleMania, yeah.
I agree. What do you have at number 8, Mike?
Number 8, Macho Steamboat.
Macho Steamboat, okay.
I mean, that match there, it's like, like Shawn was saying, like, back then you didn't really, you didn't see those kind of matches, and they were just like, God, if they could have feuded, if we could have just got rid of that red and yellow bastard and just put them...
And gone out of business.
Put them two at the top. Could you imagine the matches they would have had? And it was phenomenal, start to finish.
I'll tell you, Mike, you would have had some great matches right until Vince McMahon went out of business. You would have had some great matches getting rid of that red and yellow bastard, as you said. It would have been some great matches for 6 months.
We could have put in Superstar Billy Graham did the tie-dye. Macho kind of, he could pull off the tie-dye.
But then you'd still be wrestling in the regionals, man. You'd still be wrestling in the regionals.
About this, though, it almost, you talk about the psychology and everything.
Mm-hmm.
This was, I had appreciation to Miss Elizabeth real quickly. Like, she was with Macho Man whether he was heel or face, and she was the same, and people loved her the same, yet they could hate Macho Man.
Absolutely.
That's just like, I just thought about that. That's amazing, but nonetheless, back to the match, I mean, it was definitely better than the main event. As far as, like, if you had never seen wrestling or knew anything about it, and you were to, like, watch those matches and you were to check a box which match was more entertaining, I guarantee you almost everyone would check Macho Steamboat. It definitely, they stole the show. They were both great athletes. I think that's why Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, I think that's why they get over as much as they do, because you can just tell they love what they're doing. They're 100% invested, and that's why, I liked Brock when he was first in the WWE, because you can tell he was invested. Now he's there for a paycheck. If he goes UFC, I'll be rooting for him, but you could tell those guys in that match there, they loved what they were doing. They were doing it for the love of it, not the paycheck of it. And it was just a phenomenal match. Outcome, but phenomenal match, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was.
I agree.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't that end with a small package?
It did, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Savage had him beat, too. Just the ref was out.
Yeah, it was a great match. Actually, that's my number 8 as well, Mike. I'll piggyback right off you. That's my number 8 as well for all the reasons that you mentioned. But the one thing that I think that makes it in the top 10 for that match is for me because everybody knows when you think of WrestleMania 3, 93,000 people. You think of Hogan and Andre. That face-to-face confrontation that's on every WWE event. The body slam heard around the world. The rise of Hulkamania, blah, blah, blah. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a match between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat that is still on par with that gigantic showdown of Andre and Hogan that 93,000 people came to see. But now 30 some odd years later, whatever it is, 27 years later, whatever that is, the people still remember, still talk about Savage and Steamboat. Not because it was two household names, two larger-than-life characters, but because it was two great professional wrestlers putting on a great professional wrestling match. And that's the psychology of that match, and combined with the technical wrestling moves and the story they were telling throughout that match, made it, for that time, so beautifully crafted. You didn't see matches like that back then. This was like the coming out party, if you will. This was like, holy shit, this wrestling could be this? Holy shit. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
Right. Especially when, how many times have you heard guys like Jericho, Benoit, Daniel Bryan, even Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, they all benefited from that match because they realized, you can already have your main event set with the two big icons, which, that's fine. It will definitely sell. But, hey, we can steal the show. We can have the better overall quality of the match. So, yeah, it was definitely a coming out party.
Shawn, who do you have at number 7?
So real quick, I put that at number 10, and you guys put that at number 8. So that's kind of like our first, I
just roll
we put it in that little overall position there. Number 7, it's kind of funny because I said this was what I put at number 8, but I put number 7 as, which might shock a lot of people, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, 1. The reason I had it higher originally because I love this match. Like, I can watch this match anytime, anywhere. I can watch it as many times as I really want to. The two things that really just decreased it was the fact that I think going in, I knew Shawn Michaels was not going to be breaking the streak, and the fact that Shawn Michaels did not break the streak. But overall, boy, did he make you think he was about to. When going in, I was like, there's no way. He'll put on a good match, and they both put on a clinic. I mean, if you're an aspiring wrestler and you want to know what two professionals who been in the business for as long as they have can do on a big stage, you look at that. And the rest, what's funny is the rest of that show, and I just watched it today, suffered after that because there was just no way you were going to follow that. Like, it should have been the main event. And even wrestlers have said, even Edge said that had to have been the main event, but it wasn't. I mean, Triple H Orton is arguably one of the worst main events besides John Cena Miz. And, I mean, I love everything about that match. It was just so good. And like I said, the only reason I put it down a little bit was because I knew going in Shawn Michaels was not going to break the streak. But that's what I put at number 7.
Do you notice a reoccurring trend with Triple H having to go on last after matches that are far superior than his own?
Yep.
The fuck, man. Who do you got at number 7, Mike?
Number 7, I was there to see it, and I'll bring up your point, Matt. He fucking kicked out. He got Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. My God, that was the main event for me because, like I've said before, you can ask Matt, WrestleMania was over for me after that.
It was.
It really was. It was piggybacking what I just said. The rest of the show, rest of that pay-per-view suffered after that match because you just weren't going to follow it.
Well, and I was so invested, and I've been to 2 WrestleManias. I had to watch Shawn lose at both of them. But, I mean, this match here just had everything. And, people may, disagree because they're like, oh, Bret Hart is such a legend. But I think Kurt Angle is Bret Hart 2.0. I think he could thing that Bret did and do it better, and he wasn't such a crybaby about it.
Yeah, I agree.
He could match. He could match Shawn. It was just like their chemistry. Oh my God, that match was beautiful, except for that bad call by the ref. But I mean, it was amazing. I was out of my seat over half the time, and like, it was probably one of the best live matches I've ever seen. And then I even went back and watched it, and it was just as good. I won't say just as good because you can never get as good as being there.
Right.
But
it was still great, though.
I didn't overrate it because I was there. I watched it again, and man, that was just a hell of a match. And those two, they were made for each other. It almost seemed, And I guess maybe that, and maybe this is just me being a Shawn Michaels fanboy. It seems like, he tends to do that with a lot of wrestlers. Like, no matter who he's in there with, it just seems like, wow, he can get on their level. It's not like he expects wrestlers up to their level. He gets on their level, matches them, and with him and Angle, it was just like they were on the same level, and it was art. It was beautiful, except for the ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, Mike. I know it's pretty clear to see that we grew up watching wrestling together. Because much like number 8, I'm piggybacking right off you. Because my number 7 is Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, WrestleMania 21.
You'll see exactly why I'm laughing right now.
It must be your number 6. I'm taking. But yeah, I agree with everything Mike said. I think it was a great match. Being there live, that first time experience watching it was amazing. You should have seen Mike's face when he thought Shawn Michaels was going to win, and then the referee wasn't there to count, and Mike was flipping out, and then Kurt won. I mean, it was just being there with Mike. And the live experience definitely helped. But like Mike said, I did come home and I immediately watched WrestleMania 21 on, I think back then I recorded it off DirecTV, because I wanted to rewatch the Hogan run-in with Eugene and the Muhammad Hassan guy, because that was amazing for me being there. But I did watch this match again. I've watched it several times since then. But it's such a great match with because like you said, Mike, I think that Kurt Angle is the evolution of a better version of Bret Hart. I think Kurt Angle can carry almost anybody, but then you put Kurt Angle there with somebody with Shawn Michaels who can carry anybody. Put those two together, and it's magic. I mean, it's such a great match. I don't know if Shawn Michaels, kicked out or not, like Mike says, but
Did you watch it?
No, yeah. I was gonna say I've rewatched it for the past 10 years.
No, I know he did. I give Mike a hard time, but no, it was a great match, and the kick out just adds a little controversy to it, so it makes it even better. So, Shawn, what's your number 6?
Oh, hold on, Shawn. Before you go into that, before Matt wants to talk about my butt hurt about kicking out, do you know this man made a video of Hogan and The Rock? He literally scrapped together pieces to where Hogan beats The Rock. You remember that?
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, I don't know what Mike is talking. I did not scrap together any footage. I have video proof.
I went over there to watch UFC, and he's like, "Oh, here, I got the real footage." And then he plays the thing.
I don't
know. You know what? At the time, I wanted Hogan to win, so I probably would watch it.
Hey, I don't know what he's talking about. It must have been a house show. I don't know where it took place. All I know is I have the footage that shows Hulk Hogan beating The Rock. That's all I know. It's unedited, unaltered, real footage. I don't know what Mike's talking about. He don't want to admit it. That's fine. He can live in denial all he wants. I have the footage to prove Hogan beat The Rock. End of story.
Well, with that being said, number 6 is, I'm thinking back, I'm just putting it a little notch higher, is Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, and unfortunately I didn't get to see this one live in person. I got to watch it live at a friend's house, and I think the one thing I loved about that match that I forgot where I heard it, if it was from Kurt Angle or Shawn Michaels. They had never touched in the ring prior to that. Never. Like they didn't. From what I heard, they went over a couple things because they trusted each other. That they knew they were just going to tear that house down. And yeah, I mean everything you guys just said. I mean that match was just amazing. I mean, just everything about it. I mean. Besides the ending, but even the ending was, you were like, oh, he's in the ankle lock for this long. He's got to be, getting to the ropes or something like that. So, and again, kind of like what I was saying before with Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, the rest of the pay-per-view with Triple H following, there was just no way they were going to touch him. And the rest of the pay-per-view sucked. I think it was John Cena JBL after that, and then Batista, Triple H. Oh, and Rocky Bono Big Show, because I messaged you guys like, how the hell did you watch this live? So that was my number 6.
Mike, what do you have at number 6?
Number 6 and 5 flip-flopped, and I finally landed on this for number 6. We were there. Triple H, Benoit, and HBK. I mean, my God, that match was amazing. Amazing. And, like, for, it to be number 6, it's just like, a lot of these matches we've talked about could end up at a number 1 spot. Like, with this match here, it was awesome. It went, there was really, I believe Triple H was a true heel, but at that time, HBK and Benoit were faces, and it was just a great match put on. Like, in my opinion, this is the best triple threat, four-way, best of all, best match of all time with more than 2 people in it. It was back and forth, just like you never knew how it was going to happen. You had that's one thing I do love about triple threats and fatal 4-ways. You get to see all the finishers, and you don't know when it's going to end, and it was just amazing. And then, it's just like, to me, this match is my WrestleMania moment, and I think Matt will agree, because we remember, seeing Eddie come down after the match, and embrace Chris Benoit. And unfortunately, Eddie and Kurt did not make this list for me. But that was the night that ECW kind of came to. And their stars got the world titles that night. You had Eddie getting it from Kurt, and then you had Benoit beating not just Triple H, not just HBK, but both of them. That solidified Benoit, because he had, how many title matches before that did he have where he just fell short? And then just like the confetti coming down and just hearing, I still remember walking out of Madison Square Garden hearing Benoit's music. Maybe that got put up there higher because of that moment. I think actually I take that back. I didn't put it as high because I think that the moment itself would have made me put it higher. But I mean, that match was phenomenal. I mean, what other three guys could you get? You know, I mean, the only way you could have made that better, I guess, you could have made it 5 people and put Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero in there too, and fuck, that would have been a great ass match. But that match for me, it was phenomenal. And you know, even though Shawn lost, you know, I was a Benoit fan, I was a Triple H fan. I was just happy with it. I did not walk away unhappy. I walked away like, wow, that's how you should have. Yeah. With something like that. And it was just beautiful seeing him and Eddie embrace. Because you knew it was more than just, you know, what they were putting on the cameras. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here, these guys are fun, let's put them on camera. No, you could tell like they were happy. Like it was 2 guys who started at a company a few years ago who just got promoted together, and they were truly happy for each other. And like all that mixed in, along with the great match that it was, definitely that's why it's there.
All right, and let's see. I guess my number 6. You go from a technical classic like that to my number 6 is one that you actually already talked about, Mike. I have Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant at number 6, and the reason why I put that so high on my list versus some of the other technical classics like Shawn and Kurt and Steamboat and Savage, which we just talked about number 7 there, or 8, whatever it was. Hogan and Andre is the marquee WrestleMania match. When you think of WrestleMania, the attendance record 93,000, the body slam heard around the world, the stare down before, that false finish right out the gate with Hogan with the fake, the body slam doesn't go through, and Andre almost beats him within seconds. All these things, and add to the match. The match itself obviously was not a 5-star classic, but nobody expected it to be because you have a 500-pound guy in Andre who could barely move, and Hogan has never been known as the greatest in-ring worker. But nobody expected that. They expected a show, and I watched that match numerous times. I did watch it on the network before we did this countdown again. And I still enjoy it, but I watch it and I know going in I'm not gonna see Eddie Guerrero match, a Benoit match, a Shawn Michaels match. You know what to expect, and you know that it's the crowning achievement for Hulkamania. So for what it means to wrestling history is why I put it number 6. It's not it's not a match that if you have to sit down and say, I want to watch a good wrestling match, you're not going to put on Hogan and Andre, but it's that marquee match. It's that match that, to me, made WrestleMania. 1 and 2 really didn't have any standout moments to me. WrestleMania 3, it was the first WrestleMania that I remember watching. I think that's the first, we talked about in the podcast before, that's my first wrestling memory. So I'm sure that also plays a factor into it, but, I don't know. I think that it was a good story to be told, and it's the beginning of the real beginning of Hulkamania. So to me, it was number 6 for that purpose.
I get it.
Shawn, what do you got at 5?
I swear I should just send you a picture before we talk, so I know it's not a deliberate piggybacking off anyone, but I'm piggybacking off of Mike for number 5. Benoit, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, triple threat. Pretty much everything Mike said is true. I remember actually going into it. I mean, I actually did it. I'm not a huge fan of triple threats sometimes, even though, like you said, I like the, they all do their finishers and how it's going to finish. But at the time, I was like, WrestleMania should be the Royal Rumble winner versus the world champion. So I was like, it should have been Benoit Triple H only, but thank God they did put Shawn Michaels in that, and they just tore the house down. And you're right, Mike, by far the best triple threat match of all time. I remember going into it thinking, well, praying, because at the time, it was they call it the horror reign of Triple H, because he was married to the boss's daughter, so he was always the champ. But I was so happy to see Benoit make him tap middle of the ring. The celebration he had with Eddie was genuine, that I loved about it. And it's probably, I'm going to go on a limb, probably the best finish to a WrestleMania. Where it's truly a celebration of, WrestleMania, when you win the world title at a WrestleMania in the main event, it should tell the story of a lifelong journey to get to that spot. And Benoit's victory told that story perfectly, knowing how close he's become, he was before and how many years he was in the business, and he finally, got that moment. So, and I thought that was probably one of, if not the greatest endings to a WrestleMania.
And see there, that just, I think where that started, to me, the best ending to a WrestleMania, even though the match is highly overrated, would be WrestleMania 12, because how they talked about the boyhood dream of Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
And, he lost at the WrestleMania prior to Diesel on that botched jackknife. But, and then the lead up to it was, this is his boyhood dream. So he won the Rumble at, number one, won the Rumble, lost, came back the next year, wrestled an hour, and still won it. So to me, that's the number one finish of all time. But definitely, I could definitely see an argument for Benoit winning the title because of, with Eddie involved. I definitely see that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got at 5?
Yeah, that was
Mike?
just, man, great match.
What's up?
What do you got at 5?
At 5, I have Shawn again with the Razor Ramon ladder match. It's, if the ladder match had been done before, I don't remember it, but that match was something else. That was almost the first time we've seen an ECW type match that I can recall. Well, besides the Macho Crush match, which that was one of my favorites as well prior to that. But that ladder match was something else. And the ladder ladder was messed up, and they were still working with it. And those men worked. They worked hard. That match was entertaining from start to finish. You got Diesel being ejected from ringside. The ladder match, I think, that started, you can thank Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon for, TLC matches, one of the most anticipated matches that we're about to see coming forward, at this WrestleMania. That all goes back to them.
Yep.
I remember the Shawn Michaels Jeff Jarrett ladder match, and it all goes back to that ladder match, and it's if it was, if they had two other guys try and pull that off, would there still be a ladder match? Would that match, would the ladder match even exist? And I just,
that's good.
That match was phenomenal, and the lead up to it, it was great because, nowadays they just, I kind of see where they're getting at it with this ladder match here with everyone stealing the title. It's kind of going back to then, but the ladder match was intended because Razor was saying he was the champion, Shawn was saying he was the champion. They each had Intercontinental belts, so, screw it. We're going to put both belts over the ring, and whoever gets them is the Intercontinental champion. And to me, that was the key meaning of the ladder match. So they're kind of going back into that with this one here, with everyone grabbing the title. So I like how WWE is doing that with the stealing the title, even though it almost seems like it's the hardcore title now. Everyone's running around grabbing it.
Right. And I like how they're trying to bring prestige back to it, too.
Yeah, which they really need to. Which I think the perfect ladder match would be the United States and the Intercontinental title perfectly.
Thank you.
They will
That there,
eventually.
to me, it's my number 5 for those reasons.
Well, as is becoming tradition on these top 10 countdowns, I'm going to go ahead and just piggyback right off of you. my number 5 is Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. All the reasons that you mentioned, man. It was an excellent match, and the build-up was great, and I remember watching it, and I remember being a huge fan of Shawn Michaels. I was also a huge fan of Razor Ramon, and I had no idea who the hell I wanted to win. So I was going to be happy either way. And the ending was... Had never seen a ladder match. The ending was so crazy, where Shawn falls off the ladder and his foot gets tangled up, and he's reaching for the damn ladder. He can't reach it. It was a great ending to a match he had never seen before. And then of course the fireworks coming off and Razor holding the 2 belts out with the arms stretched out wide, like a great visual. Every reason that you said, Mike, I don't want to repeat everything you said for sake of time, but I piggyback right off you, man. Shawn Michaels and Razor, great match. Shawn, who you got it for?
Well, I didn't piggyback off you guys this time. Kind of did, but only because I put the TLC match at WrestleMania 17 between the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys. I think maybe because I'm a little biased because I loved all 3 of these tag teams, so I knew every time they got together in a TLC match, it was going to be magic. And it was probably the best TLC match they put on. From Edge spearing Jeff Hardy, which they still use that footage to today. That match was just so amazing. You didn't know who was going to win. In my opinion, it was the best match by far, but even over Taker, Triple H, Austin Rock. And I remember, I was a huge, huge Stone Cold fan. So I was really looking forward to Stone Cold The Rock. And I just remember being blown away by the TLC match. And I remember also, going into it kind of like maybe like everyone else, like, okay, they did this at WrestleMania last year. They've already done this at SummerSlam. I've seen it. But it was just spot after, like, just how are these guys just getting up? It was during a time where the titles meant something to these, to the organization. So that's what I put at number 5.
No, I agree.
I'm sorry, was that 4?
4, yeah. But no, I agree
4.
with
Okay,
you,
yeah,
man.
4.
I don't have that match on my top 10 list, but I agree with everything you said, and I also agree with that shot of Edge with the spear on Jeff Hardy. He's hanging with the belt. They still show it to this day, and there's a reason. I mean, it's a spot, but it's definitely a great spot. I mean, I didn't put the match on just because I feel like, to me, while it's a good match, it's a spot fest, and a spot fest has its place in wrestling, but it's not something that I generally go for. But I can understand why people do. I mean, it's an entertaining match for damn sure, and a lot of great spots in that match. And I'm a big fan of the Dudley Boys. I don't know, the Hardys and Edge and Christian. I don't know, they were okay, but big fan of the Dudley Boys. But I agree. I can see why you would choose that match. Who won that match? Just out of curiosity, I don't remember.
Edge and Christian.
Edge and Christian.
Yeah, Edge and Christian. Because like I said, I've been past month been rewatching them all. So yeah, they won that one. But like even what I loved about it too was at the time, I think, that's when Spike Dudley came in, the Hardys had Lita, Edge and Christian, I think, had Rhino, and even they all took spots. I think, Lita hit Spike Dudley with a steel chair, and then Rhino speared Lita through a table. I forgot what happened to Rhino, but, like, even their, I guess, quote-unquote managers even took spots, so, yeah, I just love that match.
What do you got at 4, Mike?
At 4, I have Hogan versus Warrior.
Oh, wow, you had it a lot higher than I did. That's surprising.
I did, just because, like, you talk about your emotion, as a Hogan fan. My emotion as a Hogan hater was probably even higher.
Yeah, probably.
To me, at that time, even though I'm a huge Macho fan, and that had just taken place the year before, there had never been, as far as I can remember, two bigger people in wrestling to face off against each other.
No, that was the biggest I can remember, as far as less Hogan and Andre maybe, but I mean, as far as that time, yeah, Hogan and Warrior for sure.
Well, and both faces too. I think that was the big thing.
Yeah, both faces.
Exactly. They're both faces, and I hated faces. I mean, don't get me wrong, I hated Warrior too because I was a huge Rick Rude fan, and I always rooted against faces. But I mean, it was just hate it or not, it's just too big to ignore. Like, I always hated Michael Jordan, but hell, and I'm not a big fan of LeBron James.
That'd be blasphemy in this house.
Jordan versus LeBron in their primes, and that's the thing too. We're seeing these matches now, but we're not seeing these matches when they're in their primes. This was a huge match when they are in their prime. Right now, we're about to see Triple H and Sting 15 years later. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
We have Hogan, you have Macho Man right in their primes. You had Piper and Hogan, they were past their primes, they're at the same level, but right in their primes, so you did not know. Like, you just didn't know, and then they even went with the whole referee getting knocked out thing, which, I thought was beautiful for just for the whole thing. And so the way, like Matt said, the psychology with the crowd, and, it's one thing to get a crowd of 15,000, to partake in everything you're doing, but when you get the fucking Sky Dome involved in everything, that's a lot of, so even though I don't like either one of them, and I could easily just take them off my list and put someone else there that I like. I've never been a fan of either, never will be. I respect what they did for the business, but I mean, there's just no denying it.
That says a lot about the match, though, that you didn't like either one of the participants, but yet it's still number 4 on your all-time list. Like, that says a lot about the match.
Mike, you might know this better than that. Was that at the time? Was that the first time Hogan lost clean?
Yeah. At WrestleMania, that's his first WrestleMania loss.
Yeah, it was. It's
I didn't know if just in WrestleMania, but just in general. Like his first clean as Hulk Hogan.
Because the referee got knocked out.
Yeah, I don't know if you consider that
Well, I mean, it was still clean, no interference or...
Yeah, Hogan had a pin. If the referee wasn't knocked out, Hogan would have won.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the ref got knocked out, so Hogan didn't get the pinfall. But it was, that was the first time that, that's the first time that Hogan actually had his shoulders pinned to the mat. Like, that's why it was such a major moment, because Hogan had never been pinned before on WWE television. Like, since he became,
that's the
larger than life, Hulk Hogan character. Like, he had never been beaten in the ring.
And you ask why I hate this man.
It's hard to hate greatness, man.
No, it's not. It's very easy.
So that's, but I am surprised that you had that one so high, though. But that's pretty cool.
I kind of feel bad at, not a spoiler alert, but I didn't have Hogan in my top 10 at all.
Well, on that note, guys, go ahead and say thank you to Shawn for joining the podcast. We're going to go ahead and kick him off the podcast now. But, moving along, now that Shawn has killed the moment. No, I'm kidding, Shawn. But no, number.
Well, with the matches that we've said, I mean, at this point, can I really put Hogan in 1 to 4?
Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility, Shawn. My number 4 pick. Shawn, you already said. Mike, you have not, so I know it'll be on your list somewhere probably. But my number 4 was The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, the first match at WrestleMania 25. As far as in-ring work and psychology, you could not find a better wrestling match than that match. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. That I remember watching that match and truly 100% believing that Shawn was going to defeat the streak, because in my opinion, with a classic match like that, Shawn could have easily won and nobody would have been upset, because the match was that good, and there's no shame in losing to Shawn Michaels at that stage as his career, man. He was Mr. WrestleMania. Like, I'm thinking in my head at this point, who we got? Triple H. There's a couple of guys out there, but nobody really that could.
You didn't see Snuka doing it?
Well, besides Jimmy Snuka, Snuka could have, or King Kong Bundy, he probably could have ended the streak too. But I mean, really, fucking Boss, man, fuck that guy. But no, I mean, Shawn could have ended it, and nobody would have been mad. I mean, the year later with the career on the line, I mean, then you really could have had Shawn win. But the match, I mean, if you watch the match, it's a perfect match. There's nothing that you can take away from that match as far as storytelling, as far as psychology, the audience participation, everything just went perfect in that match, and that's why for me it had to be number 4. I had to put it out. I almost put it up a little bit higher actually. I had to change around a few things, but I want to put it higher. But it's such a great match.
Well, and I, again, watch it today. You were saying that no one would have been disappointed if Shawn Michaels lost. There were signs that said 16-1, and watching that match, it was the fans didn't want it to end. They wanted it to keep going, and the commentary. I mean, we talk about how bad the commentary is now. They need to take a lesson from JR. I mean, his commentary was at one of its best in this match too. To kind of piggyback what you were saying there.
I agree. Yeah, and that plays a lot into it. Maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it should. It depends your viewpoint. To me, the commentary plays a huge factor in a wrestling match because it's part of the overall experience. It's part of the overall show, and that's why. Yeah, it's part of selling, and that's why I said at the beginning of the countdown, when I look at wrestling matches, there's a lot that I take everything into consideration. I don't care about your spots or if the best arm, lock in the world. That doesn't matter to me. It's all about the story. That's why I watch this form of entertainment. And Jim Ross, I mean, no disrespect, Gordon Solie was great. There's a lot of good ones out there.
Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, fuck Tony Schiavone. But Gorilla Monsoon, I really enjoyed him and Bobby. But Jim Ross, never been anybody better. Probably never will be anybody better than Jim Ross. And the way he called that match, man, I'm telling you, it's just.
I just love when Shawn kicks out of the tombstone. JR, I just had an out-of-body experience. Yeah. Now if these commentators are to say that, you're like, what the hell? But, I mean, it was common for JR, and he just always showed, really in any match, you knew it was good or bad if, depending on his excitement into the match.
Right, absolutely.
And he was generally excited in that match.
Sean, who do you have at number 3, Sean?
I put, from WrestleMania 10, Owen Hart, Bret Hart. Probably the best opening match to not just WrestleMania, but almost any event I've seen. I mean, you want to talk about a classic, flawless wrestling match. Those two delivered, and they told a story. It was, even though Bret Hart was getting his title match, it was just all about Owen Hart wanting to get out of Bret's shadow, and it turned out to be one of the best feuds of all time because they continued their feud throughout the year and just unbelievable matches, including SummerSlam. But this one just kind of started it all, and you had Owen Hart win clean, and I mean, it was just a flawless, wrestling match. I was a huge Owen Hart fan. I thought whatever he did was gold. but when we were talking about our top 10 wrestlers who never got the world belt, I was kind of surprised thinking back I didn't put Owen in that list. But, just a classic, and like I said, flawless wrestling match was that Owen Hart, Bret Hart.
I remember being completely shocked that Owen Hart beat Bret Hart clean.
Yeah,
with the victory roll.
Exactly.
I just remember watching that
victory roll. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that like, oh my god, like what? I just never would have thought that would happen.
And he just kept saying, "I beat you, brother."
yeah, it's great.
That almost made my list, but it just it wasn't big enough. Like if that had settled the feud. Or anything because to me, Owen never got out of Bret's shadow. And if he couldn't do it with the WrestleMania victory, how that, anything, I think if there was a title on the line, I think that would have made my list. But to me, it just, as far as, the pure wrestling, I get the storyline. He was supposed to step out of his shadow with that match, but to me, he never got out of Bret's shadow. He never did. Maybe if he had become a world champion, by SummerSlam or something like that, he would have. But, he's just running around carrying slammies, and I loved Owen Hart. I loved him. And I was happy as hell that he beat Bret Hart. But I think for those reasons, that's why it did not make my top 10, because it didn't have as much impact as it could have.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see that.
But I love it though. I still remember watching it live and rewatching it. I'm just like, God, this was just it's a clinic in my opinion. But yeah, all the points are done.
Mike, what do you have at number 3, Mike?
I'll tell you, my 3, 2, and 1. Either any of them could have gone number 1. Number 3 was probably the most heartbreaking for me. And the worst finish, but not ending. I think you know where I'm going with this, Matt. WrestleMania 7, Macho Man versus the Warrior. I mean, the 1-foot pin was just... you can get more disrespectful, especially to end a man's career. And, you get helmet, but, put that aside. That match was amazing. Just 1 year removed from, Warrior beating Hogan. You got him and Macho Man going at it. Macho Man, obviously, at that time, he's the number one heel. He's the heel that, can generate, I guess that in this point in time, you would say pay-per-view buys. He could put asses in seats. He's the Macho Man. And you got the Warrior, he's the Warrior. People like him for whatever fucking reason. I still don't understand to this day. But that match was so, it was just, it was amazing. And then you had Macho Man hitting, how many elbows did you say you counted, Matt? 7?
7, yep.
Yeah, seven elbow drops. You knew he had to be done, and no, he kicks out. Anyway, then you got the whole scene with Sherry and, Elizabeth afterwards, and Macho Man getting ready to punch Elizabeth, and then, they reunite. It was just, to me, that match was amazing, and I remember being a kid watching it, I was so angry, I was so furious. I think the only time I was more furious at the end of a WrestleMania was WrestleMania 11 that I watched with Matt when Shawn lost to Diesel. But man, that match there, I'm speechless when it comes to it. It was just awesome. And then with the ending with Miss Elizabeth and Macho Man reuniting, they are the first couple of wrestling, and it's almost a shame. We were talking about the Hall of Fame earlier that she's not going in with them. But I guess that's the topic for podcast, but yeah, that's definitely one of my tops. And like I said, that could have been at number 1.
I think the reason I didn't put on there was kind of some of the stuff you already said. Was I'm a huge Macho Man fan. I actually didn't mind the Warrior, but it was the fact that Savage gave him 7 elbow drops, kick out. And then, the 1 foot is, to me, is like the most disrespectful way to pin your opponent. And Warrior was a face when he did that. So, like, usually you got heels doing that if they were to do that. So that was actually, great ending. It would definitely, for me, be an honorable mention. But just the fact that, here's Savage, who would beat an opponent with 1, but he couldn't do it with 7. And, the 1 foot, that was just the only reason really it didn't make the top 10 in my
What's so funny, we started this countdown, and the first thing I remember saying is I said, I'm looking forward to this top 10 because our top 10 ain't going to be anything like anybody else's. It's all going to be different. And here we are at number 3, and god damn it, once again, I got to piggyback off Mike. My number 3 is the Ultimate Warrior and the Macho King Randy Savage. I don't know, man. It's all the same reasons that you said. It was an amazing match. The ending with Miss Elizabeth, god damn, that was great. Like I said, it's great for all the reasons that Mike said. To me, the ending with Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth is probably one of the most amazing scenes in professional wrestling. When you can take, professional wrestling is not known for romance. You don't watch it for romance. But, how beautiful was that scene when Savage gets up after being an asshole for so long. He gets up and he goes to swing at Elizabeth before he realizes that it's her, and then he stops. And he's looking at her, the crowd's going crazy, he's looking at the crowd, looking back at her, and then they just I
loved how Savage did that. Nobody did that better than Savage.
No, man, Hogan that was great.
Hogan tried to look at the crowd for, approval. But no one did it like Randy.
Well, Randy did it so intense. Like, he was looking at the crowd, I can see it. I can just, as I'm talking, I can see him doing that. Like, it was just, it was such a great finish to the segment with him and Elizabeth has finished the match. I remember watching that match and really just, I couldn't wait for Savage to beat Warrior. After what happened the year before, I was like, this is it. Macho Man, he's not laying down for Warrior. I get the retribution, because I was a huge Macho Man fan, too. So I'm like, now I'm going to get some retribution. I'm going to kick this guy's ass, and hits the elbow drop, kick out. All right, okay, that happens sometimes. Hits the second elbow drop, kicks out. Okay, what the fuck's going on here? And 3, 4, 5. By the time he hit that 7th one, there's no way this guy's kicking out. Kicks out. It's like, god damn it, man. I remember watching that match and being so frustrated for Macho Man. I hated the Warrior so much at that time. And then the 1 foot pinfall was a disgrace. To me, that is the one black spot on an otherwise perfect wrestling match, is that 1 foot pinfall.
Yeah.
There was no reason for that at all. After the grueling match that they had, it should have been a one arm draped over the chest kind of pinfall. I can barely get over to you. Let me put one arm.
Especially considering he hit 7 of his finishers and hooked the leg.
Right.
And he can kick.
Yeah, and then Warrior hits his, and one foot is all it takes to end the guy's career at that. Are you kidding me?
It's a slap in the face. It's probably one of the worst things I've seen in professional wrestling. Outside of the Mysterio, the Mexican guy that we were talking about earlier. But as far as in-ring type things, that's just whoever agreed to that or greenlit that, for Macho to agree to it was just I wonder if he got some kind of bonus, hey, we'll give you an extra $50,000 if you let him pin you with 1 foot. Because, knowing Macho the way he is,
you never
there's no
know,
way okay.
You never know. It could have been that Macho agreed to it. It could have been that Warrior decided, I'm putting 1 foot on him, and Macho just didn't kick out because that was the finish. You never know what the thought process was at that point, because they had already taken the belt off a Warrior and gave it to Sergeant Slaughter, so they had already realized that the attempt to make Warrior the next the next superstar, Hulk Hogan replacement had failed. So why they would do that, over Savage is beyond me. But for whatever reason, they went that route. But it did give us the reuniting of Macho and Elizabeth, which was amazing segment on that, I thought.
Yeah.
And what I did like about that was, it turned, he was the top heel and instantly became one of the top faces again in just one match.
Yeah, he sure did. Shawn, who do you have at number 2?
Well, kind of like what I was saying about, a heel, turn into a face. Number 2, WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Wow. I mean, this was kind of the turning point where, WCW was kind of getting the best of WWE, and it was kind of almost trying to get, a little bit at the beginning of the Attitude Era where, there was just so much blood. But, man, that match was just so brutal. God, I just loved everything about that match. And the thing that I love about that match, and to this day, what I love about when you have a wrestler that says, I will not quit, I will not submit, and you still have to have the other guy go over on that guy, that's how you do it, is you have him pass out. So then that way you can legitimately say, well, he did not give up, he passed out. And what was great was Bret Hart was, he was kind of slowly becoming a little heelish, kind of going into the heel turn there. But that match just literally was it was just a double turn. And, you don't see it too often now, but that was kind of the beginning of it. Bret Hart was coming in as a good guy, but now he left with the booze, and, that was kind of the birth of Stone Cold right there. You can say King of the Ring, but I think that match right there, the fans started chanting Stone Cold, and, his career from there just took off and never looked back. And, it was just, there's nothing really more I can say. I just love that match. It's easy, in my opinion, it's Bret Hart's best match. It's Stone Cold's best match. And it wasn't even supposed to happen. I think it was supposed to be Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart again, and Shawn Michaels had the knee injury, whether it was real or not, still a debate. And Stone Cold, we all know, is not a submission guy, but they pulled it off. And it was just such a great match. Austin bleeding, they still, not so much now because they don't do blood, but it was such an iconic scene with the blood flowing through, but he's not giving up. And just a great, great match.
It's funny that you bring that up, Shawn. That's when WWE actually listened to the crowd. Had that happened today, who knows what would have happened. But at that time, they're like, holy shit, these fans are cheering for this Austin guy, and they're booing Bret Hart. So let's have them actually even talk about how it's happening. Like, you're going to cheer, and Bret Hart goes into heel mode saying you're cheering this guy who's a degenerate. Well, maybe not, he didn't use the word degenerate, but you get what I mean. And they have that be the basis of this heel turn. They actually paid attention to what the crowd was telling them, what us, the fans, the paying customers at the end of the day, the ones supporting them, are telling them, like, hey, this is what we see. And they played right into it, had the audience eating out of their hands with Bret Hart's whole heel turn and, Stone Cold's kind of face turn, and how they, I'd almost dare to say, started the Attitude Era off of that match. Off of Stone Cold Steve Austin from King of the Ring, where Austin 316 says, I just,
whooped your ass,
they actually listen to the crowd. Well, why can't they see this? Oh, it's frustrating just to think about. Go ahead, man. What do you think?
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, it's a good question. Would they do that now in this day and age where if they have this match now, would they chant for this guy that's not quite at the top. He's kind of getting there, but would they still cheer for this guy? And it was what I loved about it, too. That was the first time a heel looked like a legitimate badass. I mean, here's this guy that this, quote-unquote heel in this storyline going in, I'm going to beat your ass. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to submit to you. And he didn't do any of that, and he became a face because of that. And just at that time, it was really never done before.
I gotta tell you, you guys are having this great in-depth conversation, but all I can do is sit here and think is, Shawn, you said that you couldn't see putting Hulk Hogan in the top 4 you have there, and then you put Bret Hart versus Stone Cold at number 2. Boy, I gotta
Stone Cold fan.
I gotta revisit this podcast arrangement. I don't know about you, Shawn. I don't know about you. that match is.
I'm a Stone Cold fan.
Ah, boy, we gotta have issues with you, man.
Boy,
we're gonna have to take you out.
Hey, but like I was saying earlier in the work, though, I would not put him above Hulk Hogan because his career was cut short.
I'm giving you a hard time, Shawn. I just was giving you a hard time.
Okay. Yeah, I'll defend my top 10. These were matches I just rewatched, and I remember watching them live, and I love that match.
It's funny, and that's why I said, like, I think I love about professional wrestling is it's subjective. Everybody's different opinion, because I watched that match when I made my top 10, and to me, that match did not hold up at all. I was bored. I just did not find it good.
What?
Yeah, I did not find it a good match on the rewatch, man. I don't know. I just thought that it was boring, and it was a match that was designed. People always say, "Oh, the fans created Bret Hart as a heel and made Austin." If that match was designed to make Stone Cold look like a badass, that's the whole purpose of that match. That wasn't no fans.
And they sold it perfectly, though.
But the fans, the fans.
I'm not a Stone Cold fan by any means, or a Bret Hart fan. But if that was the design, then they pulled it off flawlessly. So you can't.
Right? Yeah.
No, I'm not faulting the match. I'm saying, like, a lot of people say how great that match is because the fans, changed things, and Austin wouldn't give up and all this stuff. But that's part of how the match was meant to go. And I don't know. I just felt like it was
still kudos to that match though, because God, they do that now. That wouldn't happen. We're gonna put Roman Reigns and we're going to have people cheer for it. We're going to have this type of match where we're going to have people cheer for Roman Reigns at the end.
No, that's true.
That hasn't happened at all. So
I agree.
That could have very well been their objective. And if so, bravo, they pulled it off. If that was what they were looking to do, they did it.
I mean, at the end of the day, Matt, you're faulting them for doing exactly what they were supposed to do.
No, I'm not faulting them.
Better than anyone. I fucking hate Stone Cold and Bret Hart.
No, I'm not faulting them for that.
Number 2 and 3 under Hogan for me.
No, I'm not faulting them for that. I'm saying, like if that's a key point of the match, to me, I just... I don't know. I felt like
it was genuine.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like it's very forced. It's very boring. Like, to me, and I could be wrong, but to me, it's another one of those things where Vince saw, this is what I want, and I'm going to push this. And luckily for Vince, the fans reacted, which is great, and it gave Austin the good couple years that he had. But, I don't know. I rewatched it. I didn't get anything from it. I thought it was a decent match, but nothing special. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything impressive about it. The blood from Austin's face being all bloody. People make a big deal about that, but I always watch that, and I'm like, did you guys not watch the NWA with Ric Flair? Austin bleeding wasn't shit compared to what Flair did. So I don't.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess it's the story they told and. Like I said, if that was the objective, and yeah, I mean, if we were to make a top 10 on the best bleeders, Ric Flair, number 1, and everyone else would be number 5. Yeah, everyone else would just be number 5 down below Flair as far as guys getting cut up. But, I mean, I just don't know how you find that boring. I mean, the blood pouring... Because back in '97 in the WWF, that didn't happen, And I still remember watching that, at that time, and I'm like,
well, I think that's my problem with the match, though, is like it doesn't hold up. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't hold up. Like the other matches on the top 10 that you've said, I've said, Mike said, they all hold up to me. Like, this one was good at the time, but when you watch it back, at least for me, I mean, not you know, you have.
I think we have our first like real like dispute. Like, I don't think we've ever had a selection or anything where someone's just like, no.
It's because Shawn said Hogan couldn't be in the top four.
So now, like, Stone Cold and Bret Hart get put in, Matt's like, no.
No, it's not that. It's Shawn said Hogan can't be in the top four. So I took a little offense to that. I'm kidding.
Well,
I'm kidding, Shawn.
I'm sorry. You saying this match is boring? that's just...
I'm fucking with it, Shawn.
Right now, my mind, like, I have to shake my head, like, did you say boring with that Stone Cold Bret Hart?
Sean's over there. I thought Matt was a wrestling fan. What the fuck?
Well,
I can honestly say, up until today, I have never heard anyone say that match was boring. Up until today. So you created history for me.
That's what I do.
18 years later, with that match, someone said they found that match boring.
I did, man.
Well, here, let me go ahead, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off of the same theme that Shawn had for his number 2.
You got fucking Bret Hart and Stone Cold at number 2?
My number 2, Matt will be happy with. Well, kind of happy with. WrestleMania 18, Hulk Hogan versus The Rock.
Hogan in the top 4, huh?
Icon. And that was, you know, I guess what Matt was kind of talking about, you know, like how it was scripted for Stone Cold to kind of become the face. You know, in this match, The Rock went in as the face and Hogan went in as the heel. But by the end of the match, by no scripting done whatsoever, Hogan became the face.
That's right.
You know, Hogan ran this man. This motherfucker caused it to where I couldn't see The Rock on Raw because the previous week, he decided to run a fucking truck into his ambulance. You remember when we went to that ball, Matt?
Oh, yeah, SmackDown.
I went to that SmackDown right after where they had to do the public apology.
Yep, SmackDown the next day after Raw. Then.
Or SmackDown, my apologies.
Yep.
But nonetheless, you know, but that match, like, oh my God, you talk about crowd psychology, you know, that, to me, that's like Warrior Hogan, but higher up because they both had brains. So I guess they were able to pull it off more, but that 3 rock bottoms, people's elbow, watching Matt be butthurt after the ending,
nice.
that was like my WrestleMania win. Okay? Because I had to sit here at WrestleMania 11 and watch Shawn lose to Diesel, and I didn't get another chance until now. And I got it. And Matt was, Shawn, just to give you an idea of how butthurt Matt was about this fucker rooted for John Cena over The Rock.
I sure did. I'll do it again. Both of them.
But, oh, yeah. Yeah. He was like, 10 years later, here we go.
How'd you feel about the No Way Out Hogan Rock 2, Matt?
That was bullshit, too.
That match is so bad.
And when Rock won the first one, it was great. But, I mean, back to this match here, I mean, oh, my God. I mean, not to, you know, no pun intended, but it was electric. You know, as The Rock said it would be. You know, the crowd was electrified. And just to see it, you know, like, to sit there and watch it, you know, with my best friend, too, you know, and I was a huge Rock fan. Shawn, Rock, and Savage are my top 3, fluctuate here and there. Probably Shawn all time, but Rock and Savage, 2 and 3, definitely. But, you know, to watch this match and just our emotions, like, we might as well have been there live. Honestly, I don't think it was that intense at the Chikella household that night. And that match was just something for the ages. And then my favorite moment of the match, since we're talking about things that happened after the match, was a broken, beaten Hulk Hogan coming across holding his ribs and extending his hand to The Rock. That made it for me. So maybe it's partially personal feelings when it comes to this one, but that match was awesome, and that definitely, that got my number 2. And, that was, when you talk about WrestleMania moments, that brought the red and yellow back to the WWE. That night, the red and yellow returned to the WWE, regardless of how bad Vince wanted to try and run an NWO. He had no choice at that point to listen to the fans. We don't want this. We want the Hulkster. As much as I hate the Hulkster, that's what they wanted, and the fans ended up getting it.
What's funny is, we talked about all these matches where, we said before, the match is so good that everything that follows is horrible, and lo and behold, Triple H had to follow that too.
That's what I was thinking of earlier when you were talking about Triple H following.
I told Matt to rewatch that match to see if it was actually a good match.
The problem with that, Mike, is I tried to rewatch that match, but I ended up watching Hogan and Rock again before it, so it just, it just, same thing happens, and in, again, traditional form, I'll go ahead and piggyback right off you. My number 2, which I'm sure you probably would think was going to be my number 1, but my number 2 is the Rockin' Hollywood Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18. Hate the ending, the fact that Rock won, but, you hate it, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you don't hate it as much as you get older, because it's just like Hogan and Warrior. It's Vince thinking that, he can put somebody over Hogan and get his show and prove that he is better than Hogan and blah, blah, blah. And again, Hogan loses at WrestleMania 18, and a month later he wins the world title, because once again, it doesn't matter what Vince McMahon thinks. Hulkamania is bigger than Vince McMahon. It's a proven fact.
What happened the next month?
Well, the next month he lost the title, but Undertaker.
In the month after that, at King of the Ring. In the month after that.
Yeah, he had a bad run after that. No, he did. But me and Shawn talked about earlier that was, again, is Vince McMahon trying to kill Hulkamania every chance he can get, and that's a whole different conversation. But that is what that was. But as far as this match, it's like you said, Mike. Hogan comes back with Hall and Nash at the NWO, and Vince, goddamn well, Vince brought in these 3 guys for the NWO. He did not bring in the Red and Yellow. He did not bring Razor and Diesel. He wanted the money-making NWO. So he brings in Hall and Nash and Hogan. They knock The Rock out with a hammer in the back of the head on one week. They crash into him with a semi. They do all these horrible things to The Rock. The Rock, one of the most popular guys at the show at the time. Probably the most popular guy. More popular than Austin. They do all these horrible things lead up to WrestleMania because Vince wants the evil NWO. I'm going to kill my creation, that whole poison thing. And so
I'm going to kill it.
Right. So you get to WrestleMania, and the 64,000 people are supposed to boo the hell out of Hulk Hogan because after what he just did to The Rock, he damn near killed him. And what happens? 64,000 people boo the shit out of The Rock and prove once again there is no greater force in professional wrestling than Hulkamania. Not a dispute. It's a damn fact. No greater force in wrestling than Hulkamania. That match proved it. And not only that, and I hate to say this, but I do think this way. Hogan was wrestling with 3 broken ribs, much, much older at that point. Rock much younger. Rock had to probably carry Hogan for most of that match. But if you watch it, it's still a great match. It's not a great technical match. It's a great professional wrestling match. You had all the key spots, 3 rock bottoms to the Hulkster. The Hulkster kicks out. When he hulks up and that fucking place erupts, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. That's how.
Even The Rock's face was classic.
Oh, yeah. Rock, you gotta give... The thing about that match is, Hogan, you give 80% of the credit to, but you can't take away even The Rock. The Rock sold that match so perfectly, and the way he adapted to the fans booing the shit out of him, and the heel mechanisms that he started to do, that's what makes The Rock so good, though, because, he wasn't expecting that shit. But just like that, he adapted, and that's what made The Rock so much better.
When he had Hogan in the sharpshooter, didn't he Didn't he just by mouth say "fuck you" or something like that?
He did something like that.
Yeah.
He did a couple things. He flipped them off at one point. I think the fans. The Rock definitely adapted. But I mean, you got 64,000 people booing you. What do you expect?
Right.
That's why I put Warrior Hogan so high, because what you just pointed out right there. Hogan past his prime had to be carried. That the Hogan Warrior that I had at 4, they were both
in their
that
prime.
big.
Yeah, they were both.
Warrior was as big as The Rock is.
Right.
And they were both in their prime. That's why you don't see that anymore. You just don't. No. When did you see Hogan and Sting? When did you see Hogan and Flair?
Right.
You don't see it when they're both in their prime. That's why I put that one so high. But back to when Hogan lost to The Rock.
But that's what makes
another thing too about The Rock. Like Brock has these promos that he beat him at SummerSlam and sent him to Hollywood. Actually, I think that match sent him to Hollywood, because after that, he went to go film a movie, and Hogan was pretty much back in the game. And I think The Rock didn't come back till like later that summer.
Well, Rock probably figured. I mean, he beat the biggest star in wrestling. What else is there left to do?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you're The Rock, fuck it, I beat Hulk Hogan. What the hell I got to do here? Who else am I gonna beat?
And he went on and had a better acting career too.
Yeah, he did.
Different time, different place. Things work differently. But no, that's I wanted to make that my number one pick, because as far as wrestling matches, that is to me my favorite WrestleMania match. Watching on the network or watching on TV. That match brings back childhood memories, but that match, I love that match so much because it proved that I'm not delusional. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can be... No, seriously, because all...
your sanity?
Well, no, I'm saying, like, after all these years and Hogan comes back, just like, this recent run, he's still getting those pops. He's still the most number one, popular guy in wrestling. It's not that I'm just, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid looking up to Hulk Hogan as a superhero. It's the Hulkamania, the Say Your Prayers, all that stuff that goes into what Hulkamania is. All of that is legit. It's a character Terry Bollea plays, but it's all real. It's not dated. It's not, the red and yellow, all that, that is not gonna fade out like Stone Cold Steve Austin, that fades out. The Hulkamania does not fade out. So that's I'll give you a hard time, Shawn. I hope Austin's not in your number one pick, though.
Sorry, I was paying attention.
This son of a bitch.
Shawn, if it makes you feel any better, Matt owned some Austin 316 shirts and some Stone Cold shirts.
I never said I wasn't a fan of Austin.
He also owned a John Cena jersey as well.
I never said I wasn't a fan of Steve
Wow, John Cena jersey?
I sure did. The thing about John Cena,
I did have that hustle, loyalty, respect that he had for the first time. At WrestleMania 22, I think he wore it. I did have that. But then after that, it was...
I had one, it was a purple one. It's back when he was a Dr. Thugonomics, whatever. That's when I got the jersey. But the thing about Cena is, I don't think that Cena is a bad wrestler. He's not even a bad character. He's a stale character. John Cena, when he was Dr. Thugonomics, whatever, the rapper, that was funny as shit. I enjoyed his feud with Brock Lesnar.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Here.
When he first became the good guy, I enjoyed that. I turned on John Cena when he made the fucking Marine movie and came back and suddenly thought he was a U.S. soldier. You made a fucking movie. You were not a soldier. That turned me off on John Cena, and then he got boring.
I respect him as a worker, and I do not doubt his integrity for this business.
No, not at all. No, he's a good guy.
Not one bit. I just hate the writing. Once again, it comes back to WWE not seeing what the fans are. Look what they did with The Rock. With Rocky Maivia. Not with The Rock, but what they did with the Rocky Maivia. And if you could do that with him, do you know what the fuck you could do with John Cena?
Right.
Are you guys...
Exactly.
Fucking stupid?
Well, Cena lives
what
professional
the fuck?
wrestling too. You know, Cena is a diehard wrestling fan. He loves the professional wrestling. He definitely doesn't plan on going to make movies or all that kind of stuff like Rock did. But Cena, the only thing about Cena is he's just a stale character. If you turn Cena heel,
Yeah.
and I have no problem.
He's a puppet.
I have no
He is
problem
a
saying this on the record on our podcast. I don't care if you turn Cena heel. And it's done right. I will be a Cena fan because I respect John Cena as a worker and as a person. His Make-A-Wish Foundation is undeniable. I mean, the things he
probably
does.
would too. I
just don't like. I just don't like his character. Yeah, that's all it is.
I have no problem with him.
I'm bored with him.
I don't like his character and the way he's being written.
Yeah, that same thing. I'm just bored with his character. If you change his character up and do something cool with it, I can get behind it. I just need, a change for him, and you gotta think that he needs something different, like he's been doing the same stick for years now. Let it go, man.
They need another face. We talked about this before. They need another face to where they feel they can replace him with. Until they find that face, that guy, you think they had Stone Cold Rock, they had Warrior, Hogan. Right now they have Cena. They have Daniel Bryan, but they don't trust him enough. They don't trust him enough to
he's small.
Here, we're going to hand the company to you as our number one face, as the face of the brand, and let John Cena be heel. They don't trust it enough.
Daniel Bryan is too small. Daniel Bryan is the Macho Man of this era. Macho Man was a better worker, and he was over. But he wasn't big enough. He wasn't Hulk Hogan. He wasn't the Ultimate Warrior.
Honestly,
I don't know. I think Bryan's more Benoit.
Macho Man, comparing Macho Man to Hogan and Bryan to Cena, those are that's not even fair because Hogan was completely over. You only had maybe 2% of people who were like me that were booing Hogan.
No, I mean that Macho Man.
Any mixed reactions. I think if Hogan had not existed, Macho could have carried it a little bit at least, but with Daniel Bryan and John Cena, Daniel, he can. I think the gap is he's a lot closer to John Cena than Macho was to Hogan.
No, what I mean is Macho Man would never be the guy because Vince likes big guys. Macho was never big enough. He wasn't going to be the guy like Hogan or Warrior or somebody big. Same thing with Daniel Bryan. He's not big enough. He's not going to ever be the guy. He got the belt one year, just like Macho got the belt, at that one point with WrestleMania 4. But he's never going to be, Daniel Bryan is never going to be the guy because he doesn't have the look like Roman Reigns does or John Cena does. Vince likes that look. And it doesn't matter how popular you are, how good in the ring you are, how good in the mic you are. If you don't have that look, you're never going to be the guy, and that's Daniel Bryan's problem.
Yeah. Yep. Honorable mention?
Who do you got, Sean? Go ahead and go first, Sean.
No, how about you lead off, Matt?
The honorable mention?
Yeah, we always lead off. You can
I gotta say my honorable mentions got to be Bret Hart versus Stone Cold. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Maybe I should put Hogan Sid as an honorable mention.
Oh no, not that. That's anything but that.
That's one of the greatest main events.
Oh, that was shitty. I watched that a couple weeks ago. That was a crappy match.
As much as I give you crap about Hogan, I think I told you this, Matt. Sid just never did it for me at all.
Me either. And I like the big menacing guys like that, but yeah, Sid just Sid,
he wasn't a very good worker, I didn't think.
No, and his promos made no sense. They were just so I don't know. They were just so weird. I don't know.
Well, he was just bad.
But as far as honorable mentions, I really didn't have any particular ones that I thought should have been on the list. There's so many. Obviously Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero was one that I for WrestleMania 20 was one that I really liked. Shawn Taker 2 was good. Actually, the one I'll mention I do have written down, look at my notes real fast. The one I do have down is Hogan and Macho from WrestleMania 5. Just because what it was. It's a Hogan match, so obviously I'm invested. It's Macho, so I'm invested. The rivalry that built up to that match was still one of my favorite WrestleMania build-up of all time. So that
best tag ever.
Yeah, he slaps him in the face. So to me, that was a good honorable mention. Mike, what's your honorable mentions?
It was a toss-up. TLC almost got it, but I'm gonna go in a direction where may have you scratching your heads. But I just thought it was a great match. Was the Hollywood Backlot Brawl?
Oh, okay.
With Roddy Piper and Goldust. I mean, that match, it was insane. It was nuts. It was entertaining. Like, leading up to the match, you're like, oh, okay. Oh, well, whatever. But, I mean, watching it and watching it develop throughout WrestleMania, and, that match was just, like, I found it very entertaining, and I could watch that 10 times over.
Have you watched it recently?
I watched it probably a year ago. I'm not going to lie.
Did it hold up?
But, I watched it, it's like, the whole Goldust wearing lingerie thing was hilarious, and they were pushing the envelope, like, that's something that a lot of companies and whatnot would get flack for nowadays. And you see how, the gay movement has progressed to where we are now, and you look back, that was, WrestleMania 19 years ago?
Almost.
Yeah, 19 years ago, because 31 minus 19 is 12. Yeah, 19 years ago. I mean, so it was just, and that was when Goldust was like, not just like I look at him as a joke now, but before, it was like he was a joke, but at the same time, he was like a serious contender. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's good. And that backyard, and Roddy Piper was the perfect guy to do it to. I think the only guy that would have been better would have been like a Stone Cold in his prime. But to me, like that match there was just amazing because it wasn't your typical match, and by any means necessary, but it was highly. And they had the Bronco chase.
Yeah, that was great.
That
was great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So I mean, it was, to me, that almost made my top 10, but also for all those reasons I stated, it could not be in the top 10. So
very good.
That's number 11 looking in, for sure, for me.
That's funny. Shawn, what's your honorable mention?
Austin Rock from WrestleMania 17. Me being the Stone Cold fan, just remembering, how much I wanted him to beat The Rock, because, we were talking earlier about Cena being stale. At that time, and I'm in no way comparing, saying Rock and Cena, but just at that time, the fans were a little bit, were saying Rock was a little stale, so people were, chanting for Austin. And they delivered. My main reason why it didn't make the top 10 is to this day, I don't like the ending of Austin turning heel and aligning with Vince McMahon, because that storyline went nowhere. And it should have just been Austin beating The Rock 1, 2, 3. And I understood, I understand it was Austin's choice, wanting to go heel, even though the fans didn't want him to, he's just a natural, crowd, people just cheer for him usually. And, The Rock was going to Hollywood, to do his thing there. So, but, I just remember at that time, it was just a very, well built main event, and, to this day, I think it was Limp Bizkit's My Way, great music video to promote the main event. So that it almost made my top 10, but I just can't get over the ending.
Well, I mean, you can't blame. You can't blame Stone Cold for wanting to turn heel. He probably thought that he could turn heel and rejuvenate his popularity. And you know, some people in this business can turn heel and just change the way you look at wrestling, and other people turn heel and it just doesn't get over. So it's just the way it is.
Well, and you know, I guess I shouldn't be faulting for him not wanting to change his character, but the fact that it just didn't do anything after that. Like, they tried, and it just wasn't well done.
See something like Austin Rock, they had great WrestleMania matches, and the reason why I didn't make my top 10 is because it was so overdone with them.
True.
They were time and time and time and time and time again. You know, it was like, I couldn't even remember which one it was that The Rock beat Austin finally, because I was thinking about, it was just like, I was thinking about putting that in there because The Rock finally climbed that hump of beating Stone Cold. But then at the end of the day, it's like, that's the same match they had 20 times prior. And they, you know, like, if Shawn Michaels and Undertaker had wrestled as much as those two did, they would not have made my top 10. You know, and, you know, it for me, that's why, you know, I couldn't even give them an honorable match on that. Did I enjoy their matches? Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, didn't we just see this a couple months ago? And they just like,
see, I guess I didn't have that problem. I didn't have that problem. I was more, every time they got in the ring, I was entertained. It was never, for me, I never said, oh, here we go, Austin Rock again. I was more of I was kind of more in the range of, oh, wow, we're Austin Rock again, which is, you know, back then it was rare, and today it's rare. I mean, you know, now if you see two guys that always wrestle each other.
Here's my question to you. If I cut out the last 5 minutes of that match, and I were to play, and, you know, any given Austin Rock match and block the apron to show what event it was, would you know which one it was?
Which WrestleMania it was?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
sadly, yes.
But you get what I mean, though? What I mean, like, all the matches.
But I don't know. They were
entertaining. I'm not saying they weren't entertaining.
No, I know, but they each had a kind of a different story leading up to it, though. I mean, you know, WrestleMania 15, Rock was the corporate champion, so, I mean, it was, you know, Austin going against the corporation, and then 17 was, you know, pretty much your two biggest good guys going at it. And then, you know, I agree, WrestleMania 19 was more, you know, Rock trying to beat Austin in Austin's last match. So I guess I just didn't, I think they each had their own story leading up to it going in. So I guess I just never really viewed it as, oh, here they go again.
I mean, I love the matches, and, like, I loved WrestleMania 19, and I remember Matt used to hate The Rock because he's like, oh, he's going to do his famous maneuver, right hand, right hand, right hand.
And an elbow.
Yeah, that's what Matt would always say. Oh,
that is what he did. I always loved it when Rock was, like, getting wiped out, and if a guy tried to punch him, he'd black and slap him, and then he would... But, hey, if anyone could pull it off...
Well, I mean, you gotta give Rock credit. He got one of the most popular wrestlers of all time for knowing one move, how to throw a punch, so... You gotta give him credit. Hey, he's number 2 on my top 10 list, so what the fuck, right? You don't
wait, he had how many moves?
Rock, he had the right hand, that's all he had. No,
and Hogan had a punch, big boot, and a leg drop?
That's more than a right hand.
Rock had a right hand, a rock bottom, and a people's elbow?
3 and 3.
He had the DDT in the spine buster.
No, that's true. Well, Hogan had the atomic drop.
Samoan drop.
Sharpshooter.
No, that sharpshooter is not a Rock move. He does the worst fucking sharpshooter in the history of sharpshooters. That guy fucking... That's a disgrace, him doing that move.
I think, yeah, WrestleMania 28, where he's sitting down, giving John Cena the sharpshooter. He is sitting down while he's doing it.
Man, Rock just does fucking horrible sharpshooters, man.
Yeah, he does.
I don't know why.
Okay, but it's still more. He still has more than one move versus.
I know, I'm being hard to The Rock, but I like The Rock.
Versus Hogan's. Yeah, and I was going to say, who. Has Hogan ever beaten The Rock? I don't think so.
He did. I have footage of it.
Oh, do you?
I do. I do have
Is
footage.
it produced by WWE?
It is, actually. It's all it's all WWE footage. It's all WWE footage. I'll put it on YouTube for you.
It sure is. Doctored together perfectly. Let's get into our number one.
All right. I can go ahead and I'll start out with number one, and then I'll go down the list with you guys. My number one for all-time WrestleMania match, it's again, it goes back to how a match made me feel as a viewer, as an audience member, which is why Hogan and Rock obviously is so high. But number one for me, undoubtedly, without question, is WrestleMania 20, Chris Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. I do not like triple threat matches. I think they're stupid. I think they're pointless. But this triple threat match was crafted perfectly. It's an amazing match with three great competitors. Chris Benoit's rise to finally become the world champion was a great story to be told. Me, Mike, and my dad were at WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania in the Garden, WrestleMania 20. It was like the perfect storm of amazing moments all coming together that accumulated in this match. I'll never get the sound of Chris Benoit's music out of my head when I'm leaving Madison Square Garden. It's an amazing feeling that I would pay thousands of dollars to get back, and it's because of this match, and this match to me, and that moment and that feeling is the epitome of what professional wrestling is to me. It makes you feel a way that not much else can. And that's why I chose that match as my number one. Not only was it in-ring work great, but just the everything surrounding that match made it number one for me, for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I hear that's my WrestleMania moment. Like walking out hearing that music.
Yep.
That was just...
Yeah, when I first...
And unfortunately, I think if I would have gone to the ones you've gone to, I'm sure I probably would have had my list a little bit different too. Because unfortunately, I didn't go to 20, 21 or anything like that. So, but right. I have a feeling I probably maybe would have ranked, maybe Angle, Michaels, or.
I think I used that against my ranking. The fact that I was there, I tried not to let that play in too much because like Matt said, everything he just said, it was.
Well, it's funny because
that card on paper, top to bottom. You had Edge, or it was Christian versus Chris Jericho, I believe. Yeah, and then you had John Cena winning his first U.S. title against the Big Show. Mm-hmm. You had the match that everybody wanted to see. Granted, it was the biggest flop in WrestleMania history for how big it was, but with Goldberg and Lesnar.
Yep.
And then you had Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero, and then you had this triple threat match. You couldn't ask for a better card on paper going to a WrestleMania and going to a WrestleMania at, WrestleMania 20. I remember the logo, there was a diamond for the logo, where it all begins again. WrestleMania 20, Madison Square Garden.
Still have the program.
How can you just don't, it don't get no bigger than that, So I tried to eliminate that from my ranking.
Well, see, when I first did my list, I eliminated two. I had that match at number 4 in my very first top 10. But then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, why am I going to use or penalize the match for me being there live? Because that's a part of it. That's what wrestling is. Right. It's a spectacle. It's part of the show, and that's a big part. And if that match, without being there, would it still be, maybe it's number 4 on my list, but then again, you add all the things, like Hogan and Rock made me feel a certain way through the TV screen. Now, obviously, if I was at the Sky Dome, Hogan and Rock would probably be number 1 without, without question. But the other three, that's a part of it, that the atmosphere, the feeling that you get. So I didn't want to take away from that match because I was there. I felt like that added to it. But I
love that we're not all paid by someone to do our rankings. We do them how we want them instead of oh, this company wants it like this, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's what's beautiful about our wrestling.
I think so. Yeah.
And what I like, too, about this list is you said it before, Mike, we're not agreeing on all of them.
No, I think that's what's great, though. I think that's what makes wrestling so subjective.
Yeah, and I told you, I think this would be great. And even to the listeners, like, you may, say you might like Mike's top 10, but you may not like Matt's, or you might like Matt's, but you don't like mine, or, that's what another great thing about professional wrestling is, as a listener, you might have your top 10 completely different.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, because I know a lot of the internet wrestling community would probably who listen to this is probably thinking I'm the biggest idiot in the world, because they're probably like, "Oh, how does Hogan? That guy knows 5 moves. How the fuck is he on there?"
the guy that supports $9.99.
Right? You know what I'm saying? How is he in there? Or we mean Andre the Giant? That guy can't move at WrestleMania 3.
Andre the Giant, he's that trophy, isn't he?
Yeah, there's probably so many people that are thinking, well, obviously Daniel Bryan should be.
Yeah. By the way, we're assuming right now our average audience is like 10.
I know.
Which are probably,
But you're able to explain your picks.
Right, but...
It's not like you're going in there with no
justification
saying, Hogan Rock 2. Boom. I said it.
But that's why I say, like, when I do my list, I'm unapologetic. I am a nostalgia wrestling fan. I'm an old school wrestling fan. I do not read the wrestling news boards and agree with everything that the internet wrestling community says, because it's the cool thing to do. Like, I am so tired of hearing people say that, and maybe you guys like this, and that's fine. For me personally, I am tired of hearing people say how CM Punk and Taker is one of the best WrestleMania matches in history. That match was beyond boring to me. CM Punk is highly overrated, but he's the cool wrestler on the internet, so everybody likes him. And that's fine, because I'm the minority, and I openly admit that. Most like CM Punk. But I don't like. That's why I like our top 10s, because we say what we like and then we explain why. We don't just say, "Oh, I like you." Shawn, for you, you didn't say, "Well, I like Bret Hart versus Stone Cold," and I shit on your pick, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a boring ass match." You didn't go, "You know what, Matt? You're right. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold. I don't know why I put that at number 2." You didn't back down with that. Whereas if you go on the internet, you got to follow the cool thing to do. As followers, and change your opinions, and we don't do that, and that's why I like having these conversations. That's why our, at this point, almost a little over 3-hour conversation doesn't feel like it, because we're talking professional wrestling, but we're talking about it from our own perspectives, and it's a good debate, it's a good conversation, and that's why I like it.
I will say Punk, in my opinion, I like Punk. I don't like how he left. I thought he was a great performer. I will say Punk Taker at WrestleMania was probably the first time I was actually rooting for Punk, but I will say it was probably the best match on that card.
What pay-per-view was that? What number was that?
I think it was Brock, Triple H, and Rock Cena for the belt. Just because Brock, Triple H, I was like, I already saw it. And then Rock Cena, it's like, well, we all know Cena's winning, so.
That's horrible. Anything else on that card? Fandango on there or something that could have been better than CM Punk or something?
Jericho, yeah.
Well, hey, it's better than CM Punk and Taker. I don't know. Nah, I'm just saying. Let's go ahead and, Mike, number 1. Who's your number 1 pick? I have a feeling I know what it is, but let's go ahead and hear it.
HBK Taker.
I knew it.
I mean, like I said about the first one, about the second one, that was one that I believe that Shawn could win because of the career versus the streak. And what makes this one better is because I didn't think Shawn was going to win. Like, I was hoping he was, don't get me wrong, going into it as a Shawn fan. And, the lead up to it was great. But during the match, he made you believe that he could actually end it. You mentioned that, Matt, how, like, you thought, oh, this could actually be it.
I thought it was. Absolutely.
It's one thing to build a storyline going into it to make you think this guy has a chance to make you want to watch, but to actually be watching it and think, holy shit, he could actually do it. He could actually do it. He's going to do it. He's going to do it. And that's how I was. I was like, he's going to do it. Oh, my fucking God, he's going to do it. I was so, I thought he was going to do it, especially from, had they gone in, a streak versus, career in that first one, and then that match played out like that, the excitement, I don't think, would have been as high of, oh, yep, they're going to let Shawn keep his career. That's why you think that he's going to. But based on this, you just thought he was going to do it just because, fuck, he's going to do it. And, like, the match was amazing. Like, I mean, I'm not one to use internet boards or anything, but, I mean, I guarantee you go across a lot of them, they're going to say that match was the best, and that's almost like saying Hogan's the best, whether you agree with it or not. The popular consensus is, and sometimes, it's like stereotypes exist for a reason. A lot of people call that match the best for a reason. Like, that match from start to finish was just truly amazing. I hated that Shawn didn't win, but at the end of the day, I mean, what a match. I mean, if you want to get someone hooked on wrestling, like how you were saying, have them watch that match. Maybe you have to explain a little bit of the story, but I mean, Undertaker didn't look broken or, that entire match was just gold.
It's funny you said that about if people never watched it. I remember watching it, and I had people come over who didn't watch wrestling, and they were incredibly invested in that match when they were watching it. And the part, their mouths dropping when I was like, hey, did you know these guys are like in their mid-40s doing this? They're just like in shock that here's these guys in their mid-40s outperforming half the rosters in their late 20s.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
And the other thing I love about that match is Shawn Michaels is trying to get Taker counted out, and Shawn's probably one of the best facial expressions in the ring. Like, he's like praying and like trying to get the count out, and right when Taker gets in, it's like, that is another reason I love that match too. It's like everything was done well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that match, like I said earlier with my pick, I think that there's no more of a perfect template for a wrestling match than that match. That match was beyond amazing with those, and yeah, I mean, with that match, it's hard to believe it. It's WrestleMania 25, only 5 years ago, and Taker looked fucking amazing in that match. And then you look at WrestleMania 30, and not so much. So it's amazing what little time can do.
I still remember when he took that dive. I thought he broke his neck doing that. I was like, oh my God. I was like, he did not land well.
Well, I gotta say, I'm a little curious here. Shawn, what is your number one pick?
It is pretty much, we both said it already, but the ladder match between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. Still remember watching this match. What I love about it, we kind of already said it. It has now, there really wasn't any ladder matches before that. Shawn Michaels has even was in an interview saying the only reason that match came about is he said he didn't take anything, but he failed a drug test. They wanted to suspend him and have him give him back the IC belt. He said he wouldn't do it. So that's how they got that match. Obviously, magic was created, and it's, to this day, over 20 years later, the best ladder match of all time. And it's the first one that basically started it all. That match was just, I know I keep saying these words for a lot of the matches, flawless. I mean, you knew what the story was. They told it. And, the ending was great. I was rooting for both guys. You didn't know who was going to win. And, for that match, that match produced TLC, Money in the Bank, now this IC title, ladder match. And really any match that involves ladders you can always go back to this match right here.
Absolutely.
And it was pretty much the first time Shawn Michaels was being known as the guy who was going to outperform anybody at WrestleMania. So after, like I said, I'd have to say that was the greatest match in WrestleMania history. Even over 20 years later.
It was definitely a great one. It still holds up. What do we have that? Number 5 on my list and 5 on Mike's list. Who, if you guys can remember, I think last podcast we had was the greatest wrestler to never hold a world championship. Was the number 1 pick on that one when we merged all 3 of our lists together? Was it Mr. Perfect?
I think it was Razor.
Was it Razor? That's who it was. I couldn't remember who it was. So Razor.
Yeah, it was,
but I think Perfect was like number 2.
Okay, so Razor.
I'm looking at the list right now because I'm doing it at the same spot.
Razor and
I had
Scott
Perfect as my number 1, but I flipped it.
That's right. You flipped it. That's what it was.
Which ones did all 3 of us agree on that we did put in our top 10? I'm kind of curious.
We all had HBK Taker. We all had Benoit, Triple H, HBK. We all had the ladder match. We all had HBK Angle. And we all had Macho Steamboat. I think, Shawn, me and you both had
Taker, Shawn Michaels, too.
Yep, and then Matt, we had together Hogan Warrior, Macho Warrior, Rock Hogan, and Andre Hogan.
So we had a lot of the same ones. I think, Mike, almost our list is almost identical.
I think, actually, now that I look at it, man, I think we had 9 similar picks except for HBK Taker 2. What was your off pick that we didn't agree on? What replaced HBK Taker 2 for you?
Oh, Macho and Flair.
Macho Flair, yep.
Yeah,
that was our only disagreement.
Macho and Flair was the other one. So yeah, it's pretty good top 10 countdown. I think me and Mike, ours is a lot closer than I thought it was. Only having one pick different. I thought for sure we were gonna have some.
With me and Mike, it pretty much started from 10 to the middle, 10 through 5. We pretty much almost had the exact same pick and ranking almost.
Yeah, you had a pretty good list of those, Shawn. So you got to number 2.
Well, yeah, all the lists were, and honestly, I'm just not a Stone Cold Bret Hart fan. So that probably we can all say that we went into this list being biased, but not being whatever. But
really, any list.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole.
At the end of the day, personal opinions play a lot into it, and who knows if I wasn't a Shawn fan, I could easily take out HBK versus Angle, just because there really wasn't like how I kind of said about Shawn's Owen versus Brett pick, how there really wasn't too much behind. That actually had more story behind it than HBK Angle did.
Mm-hmm.
I could easily replace say Macho Man Flair or Austin.
Owen Brett, though, man, that was a good match. That would be, if we did a top 15, that would definitely be my top 15, because Owen Brett was great, and the fact that Owen Hart won, nobody saw that coming.
Right, everyone thought, Brett.
Yeah,
because that was a good match, a good ending, and
can we all agree this was the hardest countdown?
It damn sure was. For me, at least for me, it was. I had a hard time.
There's so many factors you have to take into place when you say matches. You know what I mean? Because matches you have to include. There's so many aspects of it. Technical side, the story leading up to it, the aftermath of it, the actual in-ring work, the psychology. Where you say like tag teams, you can base a lot off merit.
Right.
In a where like this is one match. That's the accomplishment. This one match. So I think this one took a lot more thought, and it was just a lot harder. And like I said, my 1 through 3, which was Taker, Shawn, Hogan, Rock, Warrior, Macho, at that point, I could put any one of those at number 1, and I could justify it, easily.
You know what countdown I think is going to be the hardest, and we probably won't get to it for a couple weeks or if not longer. At some point, we'll have to do it. Is the top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time. I was thinking in my head the other day about top 10s we could do, and I was like, well, that's a good one. You're going to have to do at some point, but you want to build your way up to that one. And I was like, we'll work our way up there. But I was thinking in my head, top 10 greatest, like, who do you put? Like, I mean, how do you put somebody above the other person? Like, like Mike, you said yourself already, your top 3 favorites, Rock, Shawn, and Macho. Maybe they won't be your number 1, 2, 3, I don't know. But then you got to start picking those people and putting them in orders and saying, okay, well, I think, I like so-and-so better, but so-and-so over here was better than this. I mean, that would be a hard list to do, I think.
And see,
that's like
right away when you talk about that, what I think would be hard is like Sting.
Oh God, I know.
He'd just be hard to place because he spent all of his career in WCW. So it's like, do you place him ahead of, say, Rock, Stone Cold, Macho, or to me that's like really hard.
Yeah.
That's what that would be. Is Sting great? Like, do I think if Sting would have came over to WWE that he would have had the type of career that he had in WCW? Absolutely.
Oh, he would have been. Yeah, he would have been Warrior spot.
Actually, too.
But he didn't. So it's like, what do you and like look at the times like when you can sit here and say Triple H, like when they say Ric Flair 16-time world champion, I give that way more merit than what's John Cena 13-time now. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, when you can,
I think John Cena's 15
belts,
times.
Well, yeah, and when you got 2 belts at the time for 10 years,
right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of easy to get to that number.
And the belts change hands every other month. It seems like.
Right.
So I mean, there's just so many things to take into consideration. Like this here, it's going to be a very hard one. I already know who my number 1 is, but but going down the list, like. That's another list where you could probably put like number 8 at number 2 and justify it just as easily. Justify your number 2.
I agree, because I was thinking the other day, just for my own benefit, I was thinking in my head of who I would do. I said, well, obviously, no spoiler here, we know who my number 1 is, but I'm like, who the fuck do I put 2 through 10? Like, because, like, I'm not, a huge Steve Austin fan, but he's up there. But then you got Shawn Michaels, you got Taker, you got, Rock in some aspects, you got Flair, you got, Sting, you got Macho, there's so many people, like, how do you put somebody above the other? And then you look at it, like you got, let's say, Stone Cold. A lot of people think Stone Cold is one of the most popular guys of all time. Is he really? Mm-hmm. He was on top for, 3-4 years? Is that really one of the best of all time when you got guys like Taker who have been on top for, over 20 at this point? Hogan's obviously for over 30-something. Michaels has been on a good streak, for, 15 years, whatever it's been, if not longer. But then how do you discredit? Like, how do you discredit The Rock, who's only on top for, a handful, couple of years, but he was a huge star in those years. Sting was a huge marquee star, but like Mike said, never came to the big show until recently. So I think that list would be so hard to do, but it's one we'll do at some point. We'll build up to it, but I keep thinking about that list in my head. Like, I want to do it, but I'm like, I don't know if we're ready yet. I don't know. That would be a hard list to do. At least 2 through 10 for me, anyways. 1's easy, but 2 through 10 would be hard.
Right. Well, I think you already know my number 1 too, Max. We were talking about it at work. Yeah, I can't discredit that. Right. All that. I mean, if we were to say in-ring performers,
that's a whole story. Then my guy won't make the top 10, unfortunately. In-ring performers, he won't be in the top 20, probably.
I honestly don't know. but no, if we're being like greatest, and maybe like not even saying wrestlers, I don't know, maybe go WWE route and say greatest superstars.
Right? Yeah, that's probably better.
That might be a little bit easier, because then people might, if we say wrestlers, they'll be like, how is so-and-so the better wrestler than that person?
Well, they're called wrestlers, though. I mean, you don't want to say superstars, because then that eliminates the WCW guys, because they were never called superstars over there.
No, True.
And you don't want to eliminate them because, Flair, his best years were over the WCW and Sting. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to be in the conversation then. You don't want to discredit Sting. I mean,
Exactly. And it's like, do you discredit Flair for staying on top at WCW all this time? I mean, he had, 2 good years in WWE in the 90s, and then he, just finished it off, in WWE where, he had some good matches, but nowhere near what he was in his prime or anything like that. So it's like, where do you rank Flair for, because, he was basically WCW, as far as staying on top, the WCW version of Hogan.
Right, absolutely.
So.
Right, but at the end of the day, though, still Flair kind of, he made his presence in the WWE, even though it wasn't as a world champion, just his presence being there, helped. Like,
I would definitely put Flair in my top 10, though. I mean, that's
it's just
definitely not.
Where does he go is the question.
But where do you about like how we were talking about Sting, like how he never went, and so if Sting does say a 2-year stint, just here and there, maybe does some faction stuff like Flair did, maybe that'll look a little bit different, and then you can look.
Yeah, true. It's a good point.
But Flair, we know him for having WWE exposure. Because he finished the latter part of his career in the WWE, so I mean, it's kind of a tricky road on how much a slope I should say on how much you put into the fact that he never was really in the WWE until just now.
I think I want to do the. I want to do the top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time just so I can hear Mike say his number 1 pick. Because if it ain't who it's got to be, hell have fury on him. But I got to hear Mike say, well, my number 1 pick is...
Yeah, and you guys probably wouldn't like my one guy in the top 10, but oh, hell yeah, he's got to be in there.
Oh, I wouldn't say that Austin shouldn't be in the top 10.
It's gonna kill me to put him in there. He belongs in there. Oh.
I do gotta ask. I mean, is it just because they said he was so popular, but he was only on top for so many years? I'm just kind of curious why you're not.
My thing is,
here's what I'm curious about: is Cena gonna make it in?
Kind of hard to discredit.
You know what? I probably would.
I would.
I would. I would. I mean, the fact of the matter is, for the past 5-10 years, he is the face. He is the face of the WWE. Yeah, I agree. It is way too fucking long. But when you think of John Cena, you think of WWE, and
he's been on top longer than Stone Cold and The Rock.
We were talking about that. Yeah, Matt. We were like, if you think about it. Even he's been on top in the WWE longer than Hogan was.
Yeah.
From 84 to 93.
Yep.
Cena's been on top a long ass time.
Back to your question about Steve Austin. The only thing that my discredit for Steve is one, he wasn't on top that long. He had one good program with Vince McMahon, which lasted a long time, and it was a great fucking program, but that's really about it. But he was in the top for that. Other than that, he didn't really do much in the say of being on top. He turned heel, which failed miserably. People say he sold the most merchandise of all time, which possibly could be true, but obviously when Hogan was, running wild in the 80s and early 90s, there was no WWEshop.com. There was no internet.
I'll admit it, yeah. When I heard
there was
Austin
no internet,
sold the most, at first I'm like, God, how do you sell more merchandise than Hogan? But yeah, with the internet at the time,
right?
Because that's
always my dispute, man. That's always my dispute because people always say that, Austin's sold more merchandise. Well, maybe, but I know as a Hulkamaniac, if I wanted a Hulk Hogan shirt, I had to wait till the once a fucking year they came to town to the Metro Center so I could go down there and buy my Hulk Hogan shirt. Believe me, if there was a WWEshop.com when I was a kid, I'd be buying Hulk Hogan merchandise like I do with my age now. I'd buy every fucking shirt they have I own. But Austin, it was easier to get. But as far as him in top 10, I think he would need to be in there. I just think, for me, my own opinion, he'll be up very high because he was on the top for a cup of coffee, and that's it. Same thing with The Rock. I like The Rock. I like Austin. I've nothing against either one of them. Neither of them had longevity. They were not. They were not. And I hate to say this, they were not John Cena. They were not, Ric Flair. They were not Hulk Hogan. They were not Taker.
So he placed John Cena over them then?
I do, yes, absolutely. No question asked.
Oh, you disgust me.
No, I do. You can't.
I was going to say that's
hold on,
good.
let's hold off because this is a great debate.
Yeah, we're gonna
it really is.
We're gonna kill our whole top 10 already.
I was going to say we're probably going to double our time now just by talking about this.
We'll be out here for 6 hours. But so as far as next week, just for our listeners to know, next week we're hopefully going to have a podcast up before WrestleMania. We'll hopefully have it up on Saturday of next week, so the day before WrestleMania, give you time to listen to it. We're going to give our WrestleMania predictions. We're not going to have a top 10 next week. Next week we're gonna do our own fantasy WrestleMania card of how we would have booked from the Royal Rumble to the WrestleMania card itself, but just realistic prediction. We're not going to say, I would have had Hulk Hogan return at the Royal Rumble and win the belt. It's not realistic. It's just more of who would have won the Rumble, would Reigns be in there or not, who would Brock be fighting, blah, blah, blah. Daniel Bryan, however, we'll book the card, how we would have done so from the Rumble to WrestleMania. And I think that will replace our top 10 for next week, and we'll have our WrestleMania predictions and, of course, any latest news that we have at that time as well.
Sounds good.
Anything else you guys have before we sign off for the night?
No, I'm supposed to get up, but, man, I'm too stoked and, it's not even tired.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
My voice may sound like it's going out, but I'm glad I did this.
Me too. It's always fun, man.
I think I should actually call you guys before watching WrestleMania because talking to you gets me more pumped for WrestleMania than watching Raw has done.
Same here. Here. I don't really care about WrestleMania, and so we do our podcast, and then suddenly I kind of get a little pumped up just because of talking wrestling gets me excited, whatever.
Right.
But, that's why I'm looking forward to hopefully doing our podcast.
It's pretty bad we have to get ourselves excited for WrestleMania instead of WWE doing that for us.
That's why I want to do our podcast hopefully on next Friday, so we'll have it up on the iTunes on Saturday, and then I'll lead from the podcast Friday, the Hall of Fame Saturday, and WrestleMania's on Sunday, and it should be a good weekend next weekend until then. We just gotta hope to God WrestleMania delivers and doesn't disappoint.
It is Super Bowl weekend, so
that it is. This is our Super Bowl. I just hope that it delivers. So I get excited. I'll probably get excited.
Super Bowl. I watch football. I don't know what you're talking about.
This is my Super Bowl. This is bigger than that. This is my Super Bowl. This is the granddaddy of them all. This is the show that Hulk Hogan built.
Granddaddy wouldn't be too happy with what's going on with his grandchildren.
No, he would not.
Yeah.
The one thing me and Shawn always talk about when we're at work is, and then we'll cut this podcast short, but I'll cut the podcast off. But one thing is, the build-up for WrestleMania has been horrible, no doubt. But if the card can deliver, on paper, the matches are decent. If the card can deliver in 5-10 years, when people are watching the WWE Network or whatever they're watching it on, and watch WrestleMania 31. They won't remember the build-up. If that card is good and delivers, that's all that will matter at the end of the day.
Right.
I'll take bets that it won't.
Well, I'm a betting man, but I won't take that bet.
Well, I said it before. I'm going to say it again. My expectations are not going to be very high, and watch. It may quite possibly blow me away.
Well, I'll tell you that. My expectations are so low, it ain't going to take much to surpass them. I'll say that.
Right.
I mean, really, with the exception of Triple H going over Sting, if that happens, you'll fuck my WrestleMania up.
Oh.
With the exception of that, I'm kind of cool with whatever happens. I just hope it's a decent show. But if Triple H goes over Sting, that's a whole different story. Then I'll be fucking livid.
Yeah, I mean, it depends
on how they do it. If Sting's going to stick around, and then they're going to continue it. I'd still be pissed, but I'd be more okay with it. But like if Sting comes in, loses, and it's gone, then yeah.
No, Sting can't lose his first match in WWE and at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
He can win this and then have a rematch at Extreme Rules and leave. Lose. That's fine. But he's got to win his first match at Mania, dude. There's no reason that he would lose. He can win and then get the shit kicked out of him afterwards.
This is all stuff for the next one.
I know, right?
It's short, guys, but I got to go. It's been 3 hours and 49 minutes and 50 seconds, 51 seconds.
Shit. That's
Holy
crazy.
shit. All right. Yeah, we better go.
All right, guys. Well, it's been fun. And for our listeners, thank you for sticking with us and listening to the podcast for so long. We'll be back next week with the WrestleMania predictions and the WrestleMania fantasy card. And have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Never Submit Podcast. We appreciate your support and hope you enjoyed the show. We want to hear from you. Send your feedback, questions, and ideas to neversubmitpodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe on iTunes. You'll never miss the show. Also, be sure to like our page on Facebook at facebook.com/neversubmitpodcast and visit our website at neversubmitent.com. Thanks again for listening to the Never Submit Podcast.